side of the pond, so don't want to keep them too past their bedtimes. But for those that are here, I would like to introduce you to Josh Copeland, Gary Johnson, Antoinette, and Deanna is going to be joining us a little bit later. Together or combined, even with Antoinette's year, there's over 72 years of experience in the industry right here.
Well,
So definitely pick the brains. Josh has had plenty of time overseas, understands the GDRP. So for Gregor, with you being over in Germany,
indeed.
he understands a lot of the stuff that you go through and the different types of CV, resume struggles that you're going to go through when you talk about looking on LinkedIn and finding somebody to do a resume for you. You know, that person may not understand your region.
Yeah, never. So it's more the back end and getting into the interview.
But they are here to provide some candid, 100% honest mentorship. So if you have any questions or anything that you want to talk about, definitely feel free to ask the questions.
Still not sure if my mic is on.
Yes, we can
That's
hear
on,
you,
we hear you.
Gregor.
Oh, okay, awesome. That's good. Cheers. No, this is awesome indeed. Yeah, a couple of questions as well in the interview bit.
Well, Paul, did you want to share the exciting news of Whole Cyberhuman becoming a fully fledged nonprofit too?
Yeah, actually, there's. Wow, let's see. I gotta figure out this. For some reason, Eventbrite saying that the event hasn't started.
Your
It's got
Eventbrite
like
is
20 messages
strange.
at once. Yeah, so we finally, after 10 months waiting, officially got our status. We've been a Florida nonprofit for the last 10 months, filed back in October. So if you're an active job seeker, or if you're a career shifter and you're looking to start your own organization, understand that there's over 95,000 applications for nonprofit status yearly, and it does take quite a while to get your access. But on top of that, we also just had our 5th candidate hired. And this is a candidate that hasn't finished a pipeline. So, understand that the more active you are with the pipeline, the better we are, or the more we're equipped to talk on your behalf to try to get people in front of you and have those human interactions with these hiring managers, these recruiters. We also had a candidate of ours that was able to start up. Basically, there was an election that's going on in the Palm Coast area, and put his name in a pot, and now he's working that small contract for a little bit. The saying is, it's easier to get a job when you have a job.
True.
Because you're not stressed trying to find a job. So thinking of that, there's a lot of progress that's going on. We also just made a huge alliance, more of a partnership with withyouwithme.com, which is led by Tom Moore. With You With Me has been out for quite some time. They have an IT and cyber academy that's free, 100% free for veterans and military spouses. They're doing a lot with the neurodiversity, getting neurodiverse folks into their training platform. And then through that, our candidates now will have access to individualized training plans once they complete the whole cyber pipeline. Going forward from there, With You With Me also just secured an awesome deal where they're going to be able to issue out either 1 or 2 Microsoft certification vouchers per vet or per person that's on their potential platform.
Yeah,
This is
it's called
all
called Global Skills Initiative. Not very familiar with it. Basically, I only know that I got one voucher from them, and I applied for Azure 104 to take the exam later on this year.
this is on the tail end. They're pushing for as soon as they get more of their candidates hired that are going through their pipeline or their training, it's going to be ended up opening up to the entire public worldwide. And there's training from basic IT, how to turn a computer on, all the way to AI robotics. They have data scientists on there, software development, programming. I went through a few of the curriculum myself, and I was actually very impressed with it. The problem is obviously they're teaching knowledge. And we know that the big bad wolf on the scene is the certification requirements. So as they're trying to help get veterans and military spouses, first responders employed, they're hitting that roadblock because some of these companies do have, blockchain or supply chain contracts, DoD contracts, FedRAMP contracts that they're satisfying, and they absolutely have to have that per the DoD 8570. And that's going to lead into something that the board and I are going to be launching very, very soon. It's going to be, what the heck is going on with this? So Eventbrite is saying what, Alex?
Looks like it says you need to sign in to start the event.
I am signed in.
It's having issues then.
Yeah, it's having issues. If I can go through the registration, it won't let you in. So I had to use the link that you posted just earlier to get in.
I don't think that's the first time I've seen that happen. I don't know what it is about Eventbrite, but I've seen that quite a few times trying to get into something that I had to register for previously as well.
All right, I'm going to copy the link inside LinkedIn and share it out. It's weird.
You start like tagging them with like the security tags.
Yeah, the board and I have a very good thing that we're going to be launching here very soon after we start getting some time to hop on some live streams to advertise. I think Josh knows about it. We talked about it on and off and some kind of a form of what we're going to be doing. So I think it's going to be one of those good paradigm shifters. But Josh, you want to talk about your background, where you come from?
Yeah, I can hit up you with a little bit. For those of you that don't know me, Josh Copeland, best known as a purveyor of unpopular opinions on LinkedIn. Background, I did 20 years in the Air Force doing everything you can possibly imagine in the IT cybersecurity space. Desktop support, help desk, router switching, servers, pen test, GRC, the whole gamut. Kind of grew up doing all those things. Before I moved into IT cybersecurity, I had actually been a supply troop kicking boxes, and I was a cop in the Air Force. So kind of a bit of diverse background. Once I retired, I moved to a little company called General Dynamics. I ran a cloud security team, and then I ran a cloud platform team as well as security. That's actually where I met Antoinette. It was over at GDIT. I left there to go work for AT&T, where I currently am now. I was their SOC director for a little while. And now I am a cybersecurity director for one of our clients.
Gary, can you give you a little bit about your background?
Sure. Been in IT about 20 years or so. Like you said, done it all. Help desk all the way up to second level. Ran an entire automotive factory as the only person on site. So you had to pretty much support MES. You had to support all types of networking, you name it, whatever kept that factory running, it was my job. So you never had time when you weren't on call. Even when I was on vacation, there were people trying to get me back to the factory because something was going on. So definitely been all around, data, networking, you name it. And like I said, I told some people that, security was just part of your job for a really long time. And then they started to make security kind of a separate thing. So most of us who were sysadmins or something already knew security because it was part of our jobs. So, as people start to become kind of cybersecurity specialists, they're missing a lot of those nuances that we all learned just from looking at the whole system and knowing how to find, what a problem was. So, I definitely try to help people to understand that, when you go to the cloud, that's an entire data center in one place. So now you got to be a network engineer, a sysadmin, a security person, a DBA sometimes. So it definitely takes a different mindset than it did when we were on-prem and pretty much siloed and separated. Out of the 20 years that I've worked, I'd say 10 years of it was in automotive. I did work in banking for a couple of years in the PMO. Then I moved over into AT&T, did some consulting work in their managed security service provider side, CCMS. Then ultimately did a little time at Equifax just for a second before Microsoft kind of plucked me out of their system. And I've been in here ever since, recently being transitioned to a cloud solution architect.
Antoinette, it's your turn.
My background is pretty much been at GDIT for 6 years now. So as Josh mentioned earlier, I actually got my changeover from the help desk to sysadmin with whenever there was a trial internship, and he was the one that was part of the ones that were leading that effort. And so it was me and two other people. We got on, we learned what they had going on, and then we got accepted on to sysadmin. And so that's when I was told at that time that I officially entered the IT world. Coming from the customer service and service desk, it was an eye-opening experience for me because I got to see like on the flip side. And so from then on, I was already interested in just trying to enter security as a whole. And so I reached out to several individuals, managers, just trying to get an understanding of where they're coming from, what they're doing. And so that led me to move on from sysadmin to cyber, to do general security oversight. And then just recently focusing more on DevSecOps. And so in my spare time, I also work with a startup on trying to create like a Dockerized data center, and just to, so you can deploy it anywhere you want. And that's pretty much it. That's my background at that point.
I'm glad you mentioned Docker. Like, I think one of the mentorship events or not a mentorship, but the workshops that I think that would be hyper beneficial for our candidates is going to be on Docker and how rapid you can spin up and turn off VMs. Next person doesn't know it, but I'm going to call her out. We actually have one of our candidates that was hired not too long ago. Dale, you on? You got your mic on?
I hope so.
What about your journey, sis?
Oh, okay, here we are. My journey has been very exciting so far. Very, very grateful to have landed my first role in cyber. I'm a SOC analyst now. Learning a lot of stuff, lots and lots of stuff. We use, you know, I'm learning to use CrowdStrike and SentinelOne, and there's just so many tools out there to be able to analyze and figure out what's going on. So I'm very, very thankful to be on my journey.
What about where you started from?
That makes me think of a song, started from the bottom, now I'm here. I started from a background in, I mean, my career really started in a laboratory out in Salt Lake City. I started in HR, and I couldn't land a role as a programmer. I had just gotten my degree as a computer programmer and realized that's not what I wanted to do. So I went into HR, and I did pretty well in HR. And then I went into business development, and then I went into report programming. So then I went into accounting. You know, I just had a slew of different things that I went into just to expand my knowledge. I'm always wanting to learn something. So I have all the things that I bring to cyber now, and all of it is just business. You know, it's just business decisions. It doesn't matter what you know already or how long you've been doing it. It's just, can you learn something new now?
And it's funny too, right? Because we've known each other now, what, 2 years? And that was one of the things that we were talking about originally, was with your HR background and your finance background, you're used to dashboards and spreadsheets. So SOC analyst was kind of one of those things where you're already in a comfort zone, sort of.
All you need to do is show me where the information is at, and I'm going to figure out what's going on. I mean, it's always like puzzles to me, and puzzles are very intriguing. So if it's something to solve there, I'm going to be trying to figure out how to solve it. But it's an interesting journey, and I won't be a SOC analyst forever. You know, I've already started looking into other things that I want to do. But this is a great starting point, and I just want to soak up all the knowledge that I can. I love the cyber industry.
Well, something that you probably haven't heard. Obviously, John and I talk a lot, and you know that y'all just got done doing a merger, right?
Yes.
Or in the middle of a merger.
I'm in the middle of it.
He's already been looking at you for your passion and compliance and risk. So don't be surprised if he comes knocking
You
on
better
your
not start nothing, won't be nothing.
But with that, our next I guess mentor is out of the office or out of the house right now, so she'll be hopping in a little later. But I want to open it up to everybody. Anybody that knows me knows that I will talk forever. So I'm going to turn my screen off. I'm going to mute. This is an open dialogue. We're doing it a round robin style. So if you have a question or something that one of the guest mentors says that piques your interest, bring it up. And then while that's going on, I'll monitor the chat to fill questions. I know there's questions out there.
Okie dokie. Let me just start. So first off, Gary, I so feel you. It's like what you described in your past was my actual job is like, you know, it's you have this phone 24/7 and you're just waiting that they dial you up. So you can
I
do
worked for a
nothing.
German company. I worked for Freudenberg for 10, 12 years.
Okay. So yes. So being the only admin and everybody wants everything and best yesterday and why don't you know this or that, and you're like, come on, I'm not a Wikipedia.
It's
But-
even
but-
worse when you work for Microsoft because then you know everything.
Yes.
Maximum volume.
And even then I get sometimes confused. All the acronyms, it's insane. And anyhow, the question I actually wanted to send after just thinking like when you were talking, Gary, like, yeah, you understand me completely, was with all this knowledge, I more and more find it difficult to structure my notes or like or how to do it effectively besides just writing it down in Cherry Tree as I do, or I was thinking about like doing mind maps, or the other question I've like a gazillion of tabs open and then on my Brave browser, and I'm happy that my computer has that much of RAM that it doesn't crash constantly. How in the beginning did you guys put that all together and streamline it so that it doesn't distract you?
I can't say we have perfected that. I mean, most of us are like squirrel, all the time, malware, whatever. But yeah, prioritization is probably one of those key things. And there are a lot of tools out there to help you. And like I said, you brought out mind mapping. I have an associate that when we're doing like a DevOps delivery, he'll be just firing off this mind map and doing all that. And you can really get a lot of context from what he does. And then I'm usually taking notes. So then, in OneNote or something. So when we put it all together, we kind of get a real good picture of what was going on. So also, there's a lot of people at Microsoft who have way more plate spinning than I ever will. And they give us all kinds of advice on how to handle the rush. And, they talk about, using Outlook to the maximum, setting rules that certain email just go into a folder and not into your inbox. And I mean, when I worked for Equifax, I'll be honest with you, it seemed like every alert went to everybody. You could go home and come back and like you had 10,000 alerts in your inbox and you came back. And I'll be like, who does this? So, and the first thing a guy told me who was training me, he's like, just write some rules and make all that stuff go away. You can actually find the good stuff that you need to actually focus on. So definitely you can definitely do a lot of things with Outlook. If you're one of those kind of people who's graphical, I sometimes just keep, even though everybody likes to do things on the computer, I'll still keep a notepad around. I'll draw things when people are talking, diagrams, and then I may make it a Visio or something later. But, I find that I'm a very kind of a person, if I can see it, I can work with it a whole lot better than just trying to visualize it in my head. So, yep.
Absolutely. And yeah, same here. It's maybe just the way we went in school. It's still like, yeah, okay, I can type it here, but I retain it better if I write it down.
Yeah.
But still, how to best peel that onion so that you can take the notes as efficient as possible, if that makes sense. That I didn't figure out, and the other. When I play with my VMs and everything, and sometimes you end up Googling like how to set a static IP on Debian, and then you have like 5 pages up and all that.
I would say OneNote is really good for that because you can create tabs for like say Debian, Red Hat, whatever. You can have a Linux book and you can have it broken down by tabs. You can really, it's almost like you can set everything up in a very structured way. And then you can share that book. You can share that OneNote and other people can use it, or you can put it somewhere where everybody can get to it. So everybody can update it, and and it takes all the strain off of you doing it all yourself. And like I said, I have one guy who does a mind map. I do notes. Somebody else is videoing. So between all of us, you put all that stuff into a OneNote, and you get that full view of what was going on.
Is there any kind of video, website that you would recommend on how to do these mind maps or something like that helps a beginner?
YouTube.
Yeah.
And not only that, but also finding the one that works for you, because there's so much software out there. You kind of
Mhm.
have to look around and find which one kind of resonates with you. Because
Mhm.
some of them won't do what you want, and some will, and some will do what you want, but they charge way more money you want to pay. So you have
Mhm.
to kind of figure out where to find what you can afford that does what you need. And that's all
Abs-
software, really.
Airtables is free as well, and you're able to do Kanban, waterfall, Gantt charts with it. So it's another way, especially when you, like Gary mentioned earlier with the project management, if you want to sharpen your skills with your project management, product management, program management, you can do it at the same time while you're trying to capture everything and containerize all your training.
What was that tool called again?
Airtables.
Airtables. Okay, cheers.
And I guess we should have this stuff being put in the chat by somebody, maybe throwing some links in there so that everybody
Yeah.
who's interested could just click on the link.
Well, Paul has an app for that, and it takes notes of what everyone is saying automatically.
Now, he's being serious. If you notice in the participants,
Paul's
we
fellow.
have Fathom AI,
Yep.
and it's taking our notes.
Yeah,
for it.
transcripts. Yeah, Teams does that as well. Had to throw that Microsoft in there, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, to what Gary was saying with the notes there. When I ran a help desk back in the day, we didn't have any tools, and all we had was like OneNote. So we built a knowledge base on OneNote, and if you're a Microsoft shop, that's a good tool to use because it's integrated with all your other tools. But if you're a Google shop, it doesn't work as well. Notion works over there. I transferred to Notion personally, and you have all the same features as OneNote, and you can even have an API into it and structure workflows, kind of like Slack does, but it's kind of the engineer's version of that.
Cool. Like I say, finding the right tools is key. Finding what resonates with you.
Yeah. But I mean,
that's really a good question too, because it goes back to that post I made. I think it was this week, right? About try not to figure out, or trying to not put everything in one basket, right?
Yeah.
Don't get exhausted on resources. It was the post about sometimes you have to shoot the hostage. The hostage
You're
is
the
you.
hostage. Yeah, you're the hostage.
Yep, you're the hostage, and all these resources are the bad guys holding you back. So once you take yourself out of the equation, you can manage the bad guy. You can start lining up what is going to be the quickest obtainable, what's going to have the quickest return on investment, and what's going to go that's going to help you with your 2-year, 5-year, and 7-year plans. Marta, it was awesome to see you joined us.
And I also was going to add that on the having that plan, something that the college kids I kind of talk to a lot is I tell them about what I call the 18-month plan. And halfway through that 18 months, say 9 months through, you always do an evaluation. Are you learning what you want to learn? Are you passionate? Are you engaged? Do you feel positive about your future? And if you don't, within that next 9 months to the end of that 18 months, you need to either have a plan to move somewhere else within that organization or out of that organization. And a lot of people say, well, you're a job hopper. I say, I grew up with parents who worked for the same company all their lives. If I do that, I'll go broke. If I stay with the same company for 30 years, I'm going to be making basically the same thing I was making 30 years ago. I have a friend that's in that same situation because the cost of living raises don't keep up with cost of living. So basically, you have to almost move into another role or move into another company to continually increase your value. because the company that has you will just continue to keep using you for the same amount of money, even though you're growing.
That's so true. Yes.
All right, who's next? I know Marta got a lot of good information at the event we just did, the Diane Initiative.
Yeah, and I'm going to the in-person event in Vegas in August because it was such a good conference. I need to do it in person now. It's like such a good networking opportunity, and I really enjoyed the IoT hacking workshop, and then I plan to do the lockpicking workshop in person.
You have any questions for our guests?
Not really. I started seriously applying for jobs about 2 weeks ago, and then last week the floodgates have opened. So I did talk to a bunch of recruiters, and I had 5 first-round interviews. So I'm waiting on those, and then this week is silent. So I'm just putting more applications out there.
Well, don't forget, when we talk about the mentors and we talk about community leaders that are out there on LinkedIn, don't feel scared to ask if somebody can do a mock interview with you so you can start getting prepared for them.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
If I can, yes, exactly. I think it's really good. So yes, I had some very good interviews as well. So giving my CV, it opens a lots of doors, but sometimes it's when you're with this hiring manager. So to break it down between what he believes the role is and what you telling him, so that there's often a kind of a disconnect, or when you're talking to them and you realize like, they have less of an idea than I do. Have a nice day.
Well, you'll probably find out that the job description doesn't match your job 90% of the time.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
it's definitely totally different. A lot of times the people who write the job description don't know what the job is. They work in HR. So, you definitely have to understand that that interview process is when you can really start to get some information. And even sometimes then I've had people tell me, this is what you're going to be doing. I got there and they had fired somebody, and guess what? I had a whole nother job.
Yeah.
Didn't even matter what I interviewed for. So,
Yeah,
That's a
that's
fair
really,
point
and
too,
it's just-
especially when you look at LinkedIn job descriptions. Go straight
yeah.
to the website. Don't follow just what the LinkedIn says, because it has a lot of stuff to it.
Yeah, but yeah, mostly ignore. They all went undergrads, or how it called in America, and all that fancy stuff. But when it boils down in the interview, it's really simple and really straightforward. Yeah, I think my last interview was the most interesting, because now my information security officer here in Germany, and they were telling me like, yeah, the ISO 27700 one is too difficult and we don't use it. We do our own thing and all that. And I was like, did you even read? And especially as with the GDPR, which they are very active here in Germany for in the last couple of months, and handing out, yeah, like these penalties in the millions, like it's Christmas. So well, what we in Germany lacking in cybersecurity awareness, what's up with GDPR is really harsh. They're really boiling down on that.
Yeah, you just address what we call the people problem. A lot of times people think it's a tool that they need, or they need to change to agile or something. when in reality, it's a lot of times it's the silos of the people working together, not really communicating, not sharing information, having ulterior motives, where if I look good, you don't look good, so you don't want me to look good. And there's a lot of psychology that goes on in tech. It's very competitive in some companies where everybody's trying to look better than the next person because they're trying to get the raise or the bonus or whatever, or the promotion. So business culture is basically the key to success. And one thing that our CEO says is that he says that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And sometimes people think that if they get their strategy right, they'll be the market leader, when in reality, if they were to get their culture right, they would probably be much more a market leader.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, that they have this weird idea that with, oh, we have all these fancy words like agile, scrum, and whatever, and then everything will work out fine. But when two people who are sitting in the room just bigger at each other, you can be as agile as you want. It doesn't change a thing.
Get nothing done. Get nothing done. But yep, I definitely, and I know that being, like I said, working for a German company, we found that when they came to America, where people are much more shoot from the hip, we'll figure it out, and not so much methodical and mathematical, it was driving managers crazy, because they would be like, I just told you what to do. Why did you do this? And they're like, because this is easier, or this is better. And they're like, no, I told you what to do. So, you know, you're not following the rules. And they're like, yeah, your rules are bad. No, you don't question my rules. You do what I say, you know. And that whole thing just went on and on and on. And I was like, guys, we're getting nothing done.
Oh, yes. That's so relate to that.
What about some of the roles y'all are applying for? What kind of jobs are y'all seeking that our guest mentors can help you with, as far as finding strategies, possibly networking with somebody, or free to inexpensive training that is more lucrative than, I'm going to say it, boot camps.
Yeah. College degrees.
I got a question. So I am fairly new to cybersecurity. I've been doing tech support for a few years. My undergraduate is non-technical. It's in criminal justice. And I decided to sign up for my master's in cybersecurity, even though I was lacking all the foundation in it. And I've gotten through that. I'm almost done. I'll finish up here in a couple weeks with my master's. But I still feel like I'm missing a lot of foundation. So I haven't been looking for jobs, kind of feel stuck. I was going to start some certifications. So my next one was, to get a networking cert, either a Network Plus or a CCNA, and then work on the Security Plus. Any other suggestions you guys may have for me? I was also thinking about, building maybe a home lab as well.
Let me ask you this. Are you still working in IT?
I am.
Okay.
But
Is
it's
there
not, it's not really related to cyber, but.
Well, what I'm getting at is, can you get somebody, do you have a department that you could even just kind of interact with? Because a lot of times you can get opportunities to get your feet wet within the company, where people will mentor you within the company in most cases, depending on the environment, I guess.
Yeah, I have reached out. I was told by some higher ups that, it was unlikely that I would get a position, just because they rarely have a entry-level position available. But I have seen a few people here and there get some internships. So I'm still working on that. I had thought about, leaving the company I'm with now, and maybe after I get my CCNA, jump into networking, become a network engineer for a little while, and then go the SOC route. I don't know if that would be a good transition for me. But that's kind of where I'm at. I kind of feel like I still have a lot to learn and not really ready to apply for anything. That's kind of how I feel. Like I'm like,
Yeah, I can feel that. And the thing about it is like when you first come out of college, you really don't know how to do anything. You
Right.
just have that skill that they taught you that you want to learn how to use. And that's why I was saying, I don't know about talking to higher ups. I would normally say try to stay at the peer level. And
okay,
it doesn't have to be anything official. You could be just like, hey, Bob, I got this cybersecurity degree. Is there anything that you could kind of help me, to learn and like, if they can, they'll give you a little something to do, just little things. I think you just need to get comfortable with doing something, putting your hands on something, and
right.
then you can kind of grow. Because even though you can do a certification, it's still kind of abstract because
Yeah.
you can do these labs all day, but they're not really connected to something real. And it's just something about when it's real, it just seems to always stick with me better,
Yeah, exactly.
Have you found the area in which you want to go into cybersecurity, i.e., I want to be a programmer, I want to be an admin, I want to be GRC, I want to be a penetration tester? Like, you have to figure that out first. Once you figure that out first, then you find the individual roadmap for that particular path.
Oh.
So
And I feel like
that-
that's easier said than done when you like haven't been able to do any of those things. Like you know what I mean? Like,
well, I can tell you right now, I hate programming, and I didn't even need to know about programming to know that that was not the way I wanted to go.
yeah,
Right? Like, there-
I understand
you know,
that. Yeah, yeah,
at least eliminate those options first. Like, try to make the pool as small as you can, and then figure out the roadmaps for those individual paths. Once you figure out the roles for those individual paths, then start diving in further to say, okay, this GRC thing looks better for me. It looks more like what I want to do. Because some people don't want to be LAN admins. That's not their thing. They'd like to be more. Are you more security minded? You might want to look at the security mind aspect of it, than an administration mind aspect. That's something you can look in and read and say, okay, this will work. This fits for my personality. This fits for what I like to do. And then I can read these other things and go, yeah, there ain't no way I'm gonna do this.
okay,
You could try that NIST cybersecurity framework to try to narrow down what you might be good at. I went into there and it tells me I'm going to be good at forensics, which, that might be a path that I go down eventually. But it does give you a lot of the different characteristics for the different fields in cybersecurity, the different things. So you can maybe narrow it down by using the NIST framework.
okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of areas that I like. One of them being penetration testing. I've heard that that's a pretty hard area to step into. Am I wrong by that, or?
I just think it
How
depends.
How big is your network, Thomas?
You mean like on LinkedIn or?
LinkedIn, period. How big is your network? Because that's probably going to be, when you're trying to do that type of transition, that's probably going to be your best bet instead of just blindly trying to sit and say, I'm going to apply to this or apply to that. Those entry-level jobs are very, very hard to get. So
Right.
my main thing would say to start building your network if you know that's going to be a hard transition.
Okay. Okay.
And Chris dropped a lot of awesome resources as well. And it actually gives a good, nice little segue to give a plug for what we do at Whole Cyber. Part one of our program is soul searching. We use the UK Council's security organizational chart. We use a systemized framework, and we have you go and look at these things to look at each of the roles, all 52 of them, all the subspecialties, to really read what they do, and then look what the tasks are, look at the knowledge that you need for it, look at the abilities you need for it. And then looking at the capability indicators that really identify the cardinal knowledge that you're going to be putting into action. And then once you're done with that, our pipeline is 100 hours of holistic cyber, where you're going to get some networking. You're going to do some intrusion detection system type training, introductions to SIEM tools. Maybe it's threat intelligence or threat hunting. But that's kind of why we design our program, is because it's just what you said, right? It's hard to really identify what exactly you want to do. For instance, we had somebody on here that I'm not going to mention. They can come off mute though if they want to. Wanted to be a pen tester, wanted to be a SOC analyst. Been studying for a year and got a SOC analyst role. Found out within 3 to 4 months that they did not want to be looking at logs and staring at screens all day and doing night shift, day shift, and mid shift rotations for months on end, and quit. But they studied for an entire year to be a security analyst, and that was it. They didn't have any other marketable, transferable skills. And when they started doing our program, they found out, wow, I didn't know compliance was a part of cyber now. It used to just be IT and InfoSec, and now GRC, with the graces of the cybersecurity maturity model, boom, it's a part of cyber now, and it's going to stay. Like I said, just a friendly plug, not saying you have to come join us or anything like that, but the program is 100% free. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I know I did ISO auditing quite a bit in automotive. It definitely gives you some skills as far as being able to analyze and dig into systems and things like that. So root cause analysis and all those things are really powerful, even not just for IT, but for other areas within the business as well. So anytime you can gain, those types of tools, it's a good thing.
The other thing that's also interesting to note is that it's kind of interesting to watch that people can't speak IT, but ITs can speak all the languages. Like, we can talk to finance, we can talk to operations, we can talk to everybody. Okay, it's weird because you go, hey, let's talk about GRC, let's talk about governance risk. Well, finance has a risk, right? So I can talk to the financial people. Legal, they deal with governance all the time. I can talk to legal. But when they look at us, it's like it doesn't compute. They don't understand our language. So it's good being that translator and having a varied or diverse background in the different forms of IT. You're able to speak multiple languages. It all may be English, but being able to translate GRC to a SOC analyst, or taking it to an administrative point and saying, hey, the reason why we do this is this, and then turn right back around and talk to operations and finance and go, hey, these skills that you guys are talking about are the same thing in the IT world. We call it X. And now you're creating all those connections, and by creating all those connections, you get that power generation within a group, with a multi departmental group, and then that spars new ideas. It spars everybody being on the same page when you're talking about things like compliance, because the last thing they're looking at in an organization is IT compliance. It's going to be simple. Every organization I've talked to, the last thing they're worried about is GRC. But now they're starting to get hammered, like Gregor was talking about earlier. Companies are getting hammered heavily because the organizations are going, hey, you're not meeting GRC requirements. You're not meeting what we stated. So congratulations, here's your bill for $3 million, right? So, getting in those conversations with your people, getting in with multiple departments to make them start seeing that, hey, IT's here to stay. You guys have to use it every day. But there are rules you have to follow to do those jobs. Like, that's hugely important. And those are rare people to find that can go through those different areas and talk to all those different people to get those points across. So just be mindful of that. And that might be where you create a position kind of for yourself, where you're that guy that talks to all the different departments to get those points across. You're the mediator, for lack of a better term.
And I would say that ProSci certification may help you in that too, because from change management, that's exactly what they call WIFM, which is what's in it for me. If you know what's in it for that person you're talking to, they'll pay much more attention if you just hit them with a bunch of data.
100%.
I have a question, piggybacking off of Thomas's question. You guys can hear me correctly?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, now, what advice could you give for someone with no cybersecurity experience, no IT experience that wants to break into the world of cybersecurity? Now, let me give you a little backstory of me in general. I come from doing entertainment, music and television and things like that. So for the past 10 to 15 years, I've been completely out of the corporate workforce. Programs have changed. A lot of things have changed since I was in the corporate field. When I was doing collections and legal collections. So I learned one program through this legal firm and worked there for about 12 years. So there's really no transferable skills to go into this field. And I'm interested in cybersecurity for a couple of reasons, but I wouldn't know which part of cybersecurity would be the easiest to get into so that I can transition into other parts and find out what exactly I would be good at or would love to do. So with that being said, what advice could you give as how to easily break into cybersecurity? I am in a reboot program. They have a lot of resources. And with these resources, I'm not familiar with which ones to take advantage of that would be easier for me to grasp and get in. So far, I've taken a couple of we've had a few meetings and a couple of courses to take, and a couple of the courses were totally way beyond my knowledge of anything they were talking about. So it's like, okay, I have to go to the beginning. So where would I start with trying to get into cybersecurity as a quote unquote dummy?
So I'll take a stab at this one. I think a really great place for folks with zero technical background to come into cybersecurity is in the GRC area. You know, a lot of it is very black and white. Do you either meet this requirement? Do you not? You get a huge amount of exposure to how everything interacts with each other. When you start learning all of the controls that are associated, whether you're using NIST or CIS, you know, developing into things like HIPAA, SOX, you know, FERPA, depending on your education, being able to dive into those things from a non-technical perspective, you have the opportunity to go, okay, provide me the evidence that you're doing this. Okay, explain to me why this meets this control. And that allows you the opportunity to really kind of do a lot of learning on the job as far as the technical aspect, but you're still, you know, elbows deep in cybersecurity. Other thoughts?
Well, let's look at it like this, Josh. So Smeedy, right? Let's look at it. I'm looking at his LinkedIn. So he's got some Screen Actors Guild time, got some actor, got some modeling, he's got some producer. So definitely really big on the media industry. So let's talk about the influence and the front facing and rear facing customer skills you have. If I was, and this is coming from me, and I don't like sales, right? Cyber sales is highly lucrative. When you talk about a company like, well, I was going to say Mandiant, but I don't know what is it, Google Man Google now? Or if you look at something like Microsoft, or you look at something like Attack IQ, Splunk, all these places that are, you know, the top 20s, or even in FANG, their cyber sales teams are allowed access to their internal cyber academies. And they love to hire internal. And what I mean by that is, like, for instance, when I was originally doing my job seeking post-military, I asked that with Mandiant. Hey, I want to get into your incident response consulting, but I've been using government off-the-shelf tools for 2 decades. I don't have hands-on with your FireEye tools or your Mandiant solutions. And that was actually when I heard about that, was getting into a company, either a customer success manager, with what Gary's doing, or cyber sales position, or a cyber marketing position, because all 3 of those positions deal heavily with open source intelligence. Even your acting, even your modeling, even your producing, you did copious amounts of open source intelligence market research. It's that same stuff that you can add in when you start looking at these types of tools. And places like Splunk, when I talked to them, they said within 9 months of from 9 months of the end of your onboarding is when you're allowed to request an internal transfer. So, while you're selling their product, linking up with people, managing portfolios for companies that use their product that you're about to get spun up and trained on, it's going to open up so many opportunities. Then you look at the world of business information security officers, right? They're not 100% technical at all. It's understanding the culture, the organization, the client's needs. If there's another country involved or organization, when you talk about a child company or a parent company, and it's another one of those roles where it's really, really, really decently paid. But I think a majority of them require at least an MBA. So those are some avenues to look at. You do have marketable skills. You have marketable skills to the point where just like with Tom, don't focus on entry-level positions. It's making those lasting, meaningful connections and letting them know what you have, right? Another area that I see that your skills could play in would be something like strategic engagement or business development with the cyber company, because you do know how to use that charisma and that charm to gain that audience. And long-winded, but that's kind of the skills that I see that you already have.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you very much. If you could repeat what you said after strategic engagement, what was the other, so I can jot this down?
Business development.
Business development, okay.
So when you talk about a company, well, look at Josh, right, with AT&T. Business development would be something on the lines of, maybe there's a new tool or a new software solution that's out there that you're doing research on that you want to bring to light to AT&T. We can make this better because our staff is solid on this. With a business development, you'll bring in what's the overhead it's going to cost? What kind of liquid assets do we need? How long between each phase before you can actually put this in production? Stuff like that. It's project management, but it's more on the we'll use the Bill Clinton, shaking hands and kissing babies, making those connections.
Awesome.
As opposed to shaking babies and kissing hands.
Everybody wants a shaken baby.
I
Hey.
have a desire for a cigar.
Anything IT that deals with front facing. I know we've already talked about sales, but let's talk about this portion for a little bit. There are roles out there that you walk in and you show a product and they've already bought the product. It's like you're doing initial training of this product to an organization. They have to have somebody that is an extrovert, that'll go that extra mile, that smiles, that explains things, that most IT people are introverts. Find out what type of personalities you can do. 16 personalities. It's free. You can find out what alphabet soup you are. Let's put it that way. Find out what alphabet soup you are, and then from there, you can also look at jobs like that. Being that you were in, the entertainment business for an extended amount of time, I would look, like Paul said, go into look at sales, look at being those kind of, they're called engineering roles, but they're not really an engineering role. You're just going in and it's more of a training role. You're teaching them how this program works. So you'd go in, and if the finance department got a new programming, you would be doing the hands-on training to show them all the widgets for that particular program. You have to have somebody that has an extroverted personality for that job. If you have the Ben Stein personality, for dry eyes, let's play this game. That's not going to work. That's not going to captivate that audience. That's not going to get them to train. You need somebody that needs to be in your face. I think you would be perfect for that kind of a job, actually, because you have that, as Paul said, the ability to grasp an audience. You have the ability to reach that dynamic. Most ITs do not have that. That it's a fact. It's not even a joke. So I would look more into like those kind of engineering type roles where you're teaching them, and then obviously they're going to ask questions you're not going to know the answers to. You can bring those questions back to the business side and get those type questions answered.
I was thinking customer engineer the whole time you were talking customer engineer.
Exactly.
Customer success engineers, customer engineers. Yeah, absolutely. And I think another one too that is kind of building up a lot of traction, especially with all these road shows that different vendors are doing, is, again, you can captivate. You understand how to, like, if you were to go to a concert and you were to take out the let's say you hit that audience, right? You're up on stage. You know how to
hype man,
keep their flow, right? The hype man, exactly.
That's the hype man.
It's a lot of the companies like people like that have that type of charisma to go speak on their behalf at conventions, sell their product, sell their new ideas or innovations. I know Josh has done a lot with PAX 8, Cyber Now, bunch of different places, and that's just nature of his job, but it's more of a hobby for him.
Go on YouTube and look at any of the national cyber product releases. Look at those guys that are up there that are giving the product releases. Those guys may not have any IT experience, I'm telling you, but their whole job is to captivate the audience, to be the charisma guy, to be the hype man. That's a powerful and a rare skill set to have. And so that you have that background, that's going to pay dividends in ways you just didn't think of. That's all it is. Being creative, being able to reach those people. And like I said, in the IT world, I'm pretty sure everybody's done this. Somebody's been in a dark room in the middle of the night building up some sort of program or some sort of thought idea. That's what ITs do. It's very rare that you get that guy that can go in front of 20,000 people if you go to a tech conference in Vegas or in San Diego and be able to speak to that group about a product. And the next thing you know, sales are going through the roof on that product because you brought that out at a conference. They have to have that type of person. You fit into that category.
It's funny you say that because I had a tougher time performing in front of a small, intimate audience than a huge audience. I don't know why, but a huge audience, it was so much easier for me.
Lesser eyes that are streamlined on you at that time.
It's a smaller
Ah,
target
makes
of
sense.
people you have to reach too. If I reach 60% of a 20,000 crowd, that's going to carry that other 40%. I mean, that's what
Mm.
comedians say. If I can get 60% of the people to laugh, that other 40% is going to laugh because of the contagiousness of the 60%.
Right. Right. That's awesome. Thank you for this. Since this is very helpful, for giving me some direction. Because actually, I feel like I'm in a race, running a race and tying my shoe at the same time and not knowing which direction to go.
Well, in
So as
cyber, I hate to
Mhm.
say it, you better put some Crocs on because you ain't never gonna tie your laces. You're gonna wake up tomorrow and there's gonna be 20 new vendor solutions out there. There's gonna be a new acronym that you have to get spun up on.
Yeah.
These are the
Um,
facts of the case and are not disputed.
And then with Alfred, right? Between Alfred and Josh, you definitely need to connect with them because something else that I was just thinking about was look at these convention halls, right? If you can learn the general security of, hey, this camera has Bluetooth or
Mhm.
it has Wi-Fi connection. I need to go put this access point up and it can't, nobody else can touch it. So I have to hide the SSID and stuff like that. You can essentially you roll in to start helping set up conventions and doing the ISP security for that.
Understanding beam widths, understanding the type of security, Web3, Web2. Those are simple concepts that you can actually just pick up a book and learn. I mean, it's not everything has to be hands-on. I am a hands-on person. I prefer to physically touch it, but I understand how two-person integrity works. I didn't have to have somebody walk around and hold their hand so we could practice TPI. Okay, for example. But understanding, beam widths for specific like Wi-Fi, like he said, hide the SIDs, hide the SSDI, like all those kind of things. You'll never put them on a resume, but you understand how that works and how that benefits you. And then all it is leveraging what you already know.
Awesome.
You can put a lot of that practice together in your home network because you can get really deep into that. I've got Meraki running my home network, which is, people say that's insane, but it definitely gives you the ability to just work on it. And of course, if you do have a mistake, you just have to fix it yourself. You don't have an employer that's ready to run you out in the street. So it's definitely good to learn at home whenever you can.
And if you can't figure it out, it's probably on YouTube. You can look it
Yep.
up. They'll walk
Oh,
you
yeah.
right through it.
Yep.
And because you also have your media connection still, there's a lot of these devices that you can buy at wholesale price. So, I mean, you can go as deep as you want to, oh, we're updating our router. So this is either going to get trashed or it's going to get put on eBay or donated to somebody else.
And even IoT, which is a hot area of security. If you got TVs and telephones and refrigerators and toasters that are talking to each other, you can secure all that on it's a good idea anyway. And it helps you to start getting that IoT type of experience, your Nest thermostats and all that. So, it's just all kind of opportunities to learn. Back in the old days, that's how we learned. We took stuff apart and put it back together, old equipment,
Oh yeah.
that was it.
Oh yeah. I remember those days.
I'll tell you, retiring from the military, I got 21 years in. My very first land in the military, they handed me an open purchase kit and it was like, go to Best Buy, get a server, and you're going to program it from the ground up. I mean, we literally parts and piece and put this thing together so we could write Word documents. Now I left a submarine that has 117 virtual servers and 12 physical servers, and we only had 3 ITs. We were running the whole thing. That's the depth of like how that's changed over 12, 15 years. So all it starts out with is, like I said before, everybody did this at one point. You had your stuff in your basement and you played around with it. You just got to do that. It's going to be, and out that like what's here today is obsolete tomorrow.
Yeah.
I could tell you tricks with Windows that I know that they've physically locked down just because, well, I remember Windows 3.1. Like
Yeah.
I remember Windows, you know, and then there's some tricks that you know the cyber community's lost. You can pull that data from way back then and say, hey, it still works. You can try this. But that just comes with time and experience. So, and like Paul said again, you know, use your contacts in your prior industry, see what they're having problems with. You can help them out. They already know you. That's half the battle.
Yeah.
That's half the battle.
Right.
I was just going to add, Smeedy, you mentioned that you heard some people talking, you didn't know what they were saying, or it was like high level stuff.
That was
and-
that was actually Splunk.
Oh, okay. But like, I just wanted to mention, like, that's going to happen the rest of your IT career. Like,
Yes.
that's just going to happen. You're just going to have to like Google stuff. Everything's an acronym, and you're never going to have all the answers. You just have to like let go of that. That's how I finally realized, you know, that I just have to let go, and I have to like, you know, if someone says something, I just got to make mental note of it and look it up later, Google it. You know, I just wanted to add that.
And I
That's
would
great.
say there's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if you want to go far, go together. You're going to have to build a team.
Okay.
You know, that's what I tell people when they say, I want to work at Microsoft. And I tell them, I said, look, Microsoft keeps you so busy that there's no way you can do it by yourself. We have to work together. Therefore, we have such a team kind of mentality that a lot of places don't have, because there's no way you can survive out there by yourself. And I think when you're going into something new like that, where you don't know, that's the best thing you can do, is to get around other people who may not know that much either, but together you guys will know more, and you will learn things from each other, and you'll grow. And then maybe somebody comes along that does know something, and they can teach all of y'all, and you can teach them something because your questions open up ideas that they didn't think about. So it can be a win-win all the way around.
And the other thing too is you're absolutely welcome to join us over at Whole Cyber. We use a bunch of free resources, and it really is designed for you to get your hands on with something, to really figure out if that is your niche, right? It might be something totally different that's on the course that you're like, man, this area, I love this. You know, when you think about, let's say, IoT was brought up, right? So think about all the new synthesizers, all the new media equipment that is a connected device. You know, because you've been a user of that product, how you might want that product to be better. Those could be companies that you could be reaching out to and say, hey, do you have any entry level or junior level or mid-level positions? I've been a product user and I'm a rapid learner. You know, tell me what I need, coach, and let's talk.
Smeedy,
Yes.
do you have a mentor? Somebody that you're working with that's where you possibly want to go?
I do have somebody that's mentoring me now, getting me up to speed on the basics, organizational skills and things like that, just so I can keep things together and not spend an extensive amount of time trying to find things and trying to, you know. So yeah, I do have a mentor, but as far as the direction I'm trying to go, it's hard to get mentored on a direction when you don't know which direction you want to go. You know.
And the other question I had for you is probably twofold question. In the industry that you were in, have you taken out and kind of parsed out the things that you really liked in that industry so that you can transfer those over, you know, work with somebody to get those things transferred over? I know that's what we've been talking to you about, but have you yourself personally said, you know, in this industry that I was in, these are the things that I really, really liked that I was doing? And then that might help you to narrow down where you want to be. And then the other part of my question was, why do you want to, and I don't know if you said you wanted to leave that industry, but why do you want to switch over? I know you said you had two reasons, but I didn't hear your two reasons.
Okay, first reason why I wanted to switch over is in the music industry, it's a young man's game. I'll put it out there. I'm 54. So things have changed, the conversation has changed, and a lot of things I don't support and I don't have the taste for, so the passion has diminished a bit. So I'm a little more behind the scenes with that, selling music to people, doing it at my leisure. As far as when I was doing legal collections, I actually didn't like collections much, although I did it for 12 years. I became very good at it. And that was only because of how I was able to communicate to the people that were in the position that I was once in. Once I understood why it was important to take care of certain things in a certain manner, it was easier for me to communicate that to those people that when I was on the other end of that phone call, I didn't want to hear you calling me and telling me about I got to pay something that I didn't have the money to pay and was behind me pretty much. It really wasn't. But yeah, so I was able to communicate properly and do things that other folks that were in that field were not able to do or didn't even think about doing. I guess they had a one-track mind, get the money. And my track was get in here and in the heart, you know, and yeah, and solve their problem and let them know that, you know, they can trust you. And, you know, and then I started turning things around and closing accounts left and right and became the top collector for the last 7 or 8 years that I was there. And so those are reasons why why I left the music. And with collections, I guess it got a little overwhelming of just the energy,
Right.
just day to day negative energy. And I just needed a break from the negative energy and be at peace. So I just went into different parts of my entertainment, which was movies, and did that for a while. Now the other question, the first question you had, what was that again?
I wanted to know, that was the two questions were something about you. Don't get me going. I have the memory of a flea.
I know one was, why did I want to leave that industry or those industries?
Oh, the other one was, what things did you like about those industries that you can pull out of it?
Oh.
That someone would be able to help you steer you in a direction. Because I hear a lot of people giving you all these different ideas, but I'm like you, I like to problem solve. So I like to say, well, what did you like to do in those jobs that you were doing? What parts of those things did you like to do? And then we can start seeing what in cyber will probably be good for you.
Okay, well, what I did like to do in let's say in collections was to go off the path and come with a solution, think out of the box, you know, instead of the cookie cutter way that things were meant to be. That's why you get the door slammed in your face right away, because they already understand how you're going to come at them. So I'd like to go outside of the box and communicate differently. You know, we were instructed to get a payment on the very first call. That's not likely to happen with a professional debtor. So my thing was to earn their trust in that first call and let them go. And as soon as things started to roll in the direction that I told them it would roll, before it got too late, they would contact me first and wouldn't want to speak to anyone else because they knew what everyone else was about. With me, they got the real 100% direct without me pressuring them for anything. And I knew it was going to come back because that's how, you know, that's what would motivate me to do the right thing. You know, so
for just that little conversation, I think strategy, things where you need to come up with a strategy to solve a solution, to solve a problem.
I keep coming back to customer engineer or customer success engineer. That's exactly where you need to be.
Yeah, I was thinking R&D, customer engineer. And here's another one. What about MC, mass communications? Have you thought about that?
You blanked out a little bit. MC, master of,
Mass communications,
okay, that-
i.e. technology. Um, uh, use your production skills for TV production. That side is actually, there's actually a lot of cyber positions in there. People don't realize it. Because guess what? All of the equipment that they use is all IP based nowadays. Everything that they use connect, that's all networking. Guess what? Somebody's got to be in the background somewhere making sure A is connected to B, which is connected to the satellite, and now you have NBC on your TV tomorrow.
And also making sure that somebody else isn't stealing that information.
That's a fact.
Right.
So MC, mass, I say MC is mass communication. So mass communication, easy one I can think of is Sirius XM, right? That's all IP based, every bit of it. But there's also production involved. There's also heavily cyber involved. So that's something else that's kind of an outside the box, fits into something you used to do, because production it's just a TV or it's just a radio station, but it's still production. You understand that world. You've done it. Like, so it's kind of a comfort zone, which they always tell you get out your comfort zone. I think you should be in your comfort zone about 20%, and the rest of it, you know, your hair's on fire, you're trying to learn something.
That's funny you say that, because I actually have a recording studio where I have to connect multiple different units together. And most people look at me like, how do you figure that out? And a lot of times, like you said, Gary, play with it and you figure it out. You know, well, with these electronics, you don't really want to play too much before you blow things, but
don't let the smoke out.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, mass community MC. You know, when you said MC, I'm thinking of master of ceremony. That's where I come from. So
right.
But thank you.
So that's another one I was thinking about, just by listening to what Paul read your LinkedIn profile. That would be another one that I would look at. It's not something that's common. It takes an awesome skill set to do, but you have the skill set to do it.
Yep, that foundation is there.
So
and you won't be competing against a large group of people, because it's a very
That's a fact,
specialized
too.
skill. And I gotta grab another meeting, but I did want to say I'm going to try to make it back. And, you know, definitely think about Netflix as well. You know, look at that.
Damn
Absolutely.
Netflix. Now they're gonna start making I can't use my Netflix at everybody's house.
Oh, you
Wow.
guys take it easy. Have a good weekend if I don't talk to you guys.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay, Gary. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
Talk soon, brother.
All righty.
Thank you
think,
guys so
okay.
much for this information. But go ahead.
I think one thing I just wanted to mention real quick is because I did collections and I know exactly what you're talking about. I think sales mirrors collections really well. If you're good at collections, I think you're good at sales. So cyber sales may be a field too for you. I just wanted to throw that out.
Okay,
I know they make a lot of money. You know.
So there's one organization too that one of the vendors that I actually like because of their model that they do. Generally, all sales positions are 50-50, right? 50% base pay, 50% commission. They Checkpoint Security has each salesperson has a security engineer that's assigned to them. So when they go out and they pitch their product, they don't have somebody that you can just ramble off what's in the the slick sheet or the flyer. They actually bring an engineer to say, hey, no, we can't do that, or yes, we can do that. But that'd be something that would be, if I was to choose a vendor on that premise, would be something like that, because they also have their security engineers that go with the sales team go to Tel Aviv where Checkpoint's at, and they go through an entire month of hands-on academy to be an engineer for their tools and their solutions before they get released to the wild and assigned to a sales manager or a sales team.
Okay.
And then one of
And that's-
our directors, Leah, if you look at our LinkedIn page or our website, definitely connect with us because she's got a lot of awesome vendor connections that aren't, because what was it, over the course of last year, all the toxic vendors were kind of exposed. And she's got a good list of the ones that aren't in a toxic culture.
Okay, great. This is very helpful. Thank you, guys. Glad I didn't bite my tongue.
Oh no, this is why I like to do it as a round robin. You know, don't just come off mute. You know, if you got something, even if it's advice for another seeker,
Mhm.
you know, just like Tom was helping you, right? It's the community is here, and it doesn't matter if it's somebody that's already in the industry or somebody that's seeking the industry, because the person that you meet today, you're brand new. You haven't done any training. By tomorrow, you picked up a book, you might have learned something that the person that you were yesterday didn't know. You can advise them now.
This is true. Yeah, I've been looking at some YouTube videos as well, how to get into cybersecurity with no experience. And, you know, a couple of the videos are hour and a half long and so forth. So I've been filling up my notepads here with notes and trying to grasp a really good understanding of the basics, because I have a few trainings coming up, and it's not fun when you get lost in the trainings, because then you just feel like you're totally out of the loop, you know, so yeah.
I'll offer one piece of advice, and one of my mentees is on here, and I think I told him this. Don't do the information overload, because then you're going to get resources, and you're trying to go here, you're trying to go there, try to stay focused. That information overload will have you down so many different rabbit holes, and then you realize that you're totally off track. So all those resources coming in, make notes of them, but only focus on the ones that are going to get you to your goals.
Well, this information that I've written down today definitely helps point the arrow in a direction, and gives me a direction to go in. So this is super helpful, super helpful.
That's why I always tell everybody to figure out which pathway they want to go first. Because once you figure out the pathway you want to go, once you figured out the area you want to be in, you're gonna take the 5 billion resources that you get, and a lot of those are going to be eliminated right off the rip, because if you want to go into GRC, there's a lot of places you don't need to go that you've gotten 500 references for. So once you find that area, that niche that you want, then you narrow your resource pool down to the niche that you're going for. Then you're studying for the stuff that you want to do. It's just, yeah, that's the game. That's the whole game. Once you figure it out, then how do I get there? How do I narrow everything down to where I'm going into that one area, and I'm constantly going into one area? And then the next thing you know, you're the system matter expert of that area.
AT just actually brought up an awesome game. It's pretty new, and I think you might like it. I mean, yes, it's definitely targeted for the younger generation, but it's what was it? You remember Cyberpunk, the game, right? It came out 2 years ago, where it's all based on biohacking and all that crap. Well, it's kind of on the same premise, but you're walking through this game and you're learning security terminology. You're learning foundational knowledge and what this does and what that does while you're playing a game.
Would that be trytohackme.com?
No, this is it's in chat. Augie Tinsdale, AT. It's on Steam, $25. I've heard nothing but great things about it. And Nick actually says, I think he played a little bit of it.
It teaches you
apart-
Linux.
Exactly, command line interface, because Linux is always going to be a powerhouse when it comes to cyber. It's low weight. You don't have bloatware that is riddled behind Microsoft or anything like that. But that might be something that you can build some subliminal proficiency out of.
And what's the name of that game? Do you know?
Haiku.
HiQ.
Yep. HAIKU.
It's World of Haiku, I think Nick's stating.
Oh yeah, Owen just said World of Haiku.
Okay, great.
And it's on Steam.
Awesome. I'll be checking that out tonight.
All right, peoples. I'm a night shifter. I gotta get ready for I gotta get ready for this 8-hour shift tonight. So it was great. I'm so glad to be back. And Paul, if you need anything, reach out to me.
Still waiting for your testimonial, sis. Just
Shots
kidding.
fired.
I know.
Take your
Where's
time.
Chris?
Take your time.
Shots
Like I
fired.
told Frank, when I told Frank and Aaron, look, y'all got thrown to the wolves, and I'm glad that they put you on nights, because nighttime means who's on the other side of the world that's waking up at night. I mean, let's be honest. It's the
Y'all get
perfect
the real
place.
test.
Yeah,
Y'all get the
Exactly.
real
always doing
test.
something. And the best part of it is the other whole cyberhuman candidate that graduated too. Me and him work together. He's awesome. He's my night shift partner. So yeah, I'm gonna get out of here, you guys. It was great seeing you all. Nice meeting. Let me put my LinkedIn in here before I go, so that anybody wants to connect. I'm
And
trying
thank
to
you
get
so
back
much, Dal.
active. Trying to get back active on LinkedIn, so it might take me a while if you do try to connect. Let's see.
I want to thank you for your input, Del.
Oh, you're
Very helpful.
welcome. No problem. Reach out anytime. Oh, what is my LinkedIn? Gosh dang it.
And Dale, you never did you ever sit your Sec Plus finally? Or do they get put on hold during onboarding?
You know what? That's a discussion for another day. We'll talk about certs. I'm not a big person on certs. I just failed to see, now that I see that everybody has a Security Plus, I fail to see the usefulness of them anymore. Because I can go out there and I can talk to someone, I can showcase my skills. And then if you want to validate my skills, then maybe I'll go take a cert for you. But I'm not going to take a cert first.
Oh, I've seen too many people that got certs and they can't even tie their shoes or chew bubble gum and talk at the same time. So
Yeah, we gonna
you
have
got that other
discussion.
problem.
We'll have that discussion too, Alfred.
Amen from the back.
Yes, yes. All right, peoples, I'm out. Nice seeing you.
Talk to you later, sis. Good luck tonight.
See you later, bro.
Emily, you still with us?
I just wanted to add something real quick on the certs. Alfred, you mentioned people can't, tie their shoes and they have these certs. It's kind of like the same thing, like in my experience, like with lawyers or doctors, so forth, like people have these high level degrees and same scenario, but it doesn't mean like you should necessarily like hate the degree or hate the cert. Like I think it does have value. Like, because like, especially with like someone with me that doesn't have that job experience, like I am learning something. Like I might not be like proficient in it or hands-on, but I'm learning something. Like I have to learn something to pass it. You know.
Right. It's a two-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
But that's great. So here's the problem that I run into. I will tell you, I've been an ISSM for 15 years. I've been doing the job for almost 20. Okay, being in cybersecurity. I've done multiple, everything from CIO stuff to help desk. I suck at taking tests. That is what it is. I am stupid when it comes to taking exams. Does that mean that I don't operate or do that job? No, I can explain you every concept in the CISSP book, but because I can't pass a measly exam that just went up another 50 questions, I might add, as of June, all of a sudden, well, you can't be in a management role, or you can't be this because you have to have these certs. No, that's not true, because old boy over there has got 25 certs, and he can't even explain to me the simple concept of TPI. He can't explain how WEP works. He can't explain any of that. But he took an exam, he crammed, he took an exam, happened to pass, and all of a sudden he's got that job. And you wonder why your boss, everybody looks at their boss and go, man, you're just dumb. And it happens all the time. So I know Paul lives in the world of we need to stop everything requiring a daggum cert. And I understand that. I fully support that. There was a time when certs were required. There was a time when you couldn't get this stuff. You couldn't get access to this stuff. But now with the age of the internet, the way it is, they are starting to kind of peel away from those certs and not need them as much because one, you can learn this stuff on your own. And I don't need ISACA's approval for CISSP, for example. What do I need their approval for? That's not going to help me in a job. That's not going to help me with anything. You know, now, if you have the ability to get them, that's great. That's fine. But that shouldn't be like the go-to. Does that make sense? It shouldn't be your number one go-to.
Yeah, no, I understand that. You make, you know, a good case for that. I understand.
Well, it's like
Yeah,
you're
also
mentioning you want to go on the CCNA route, right?
Right.
Now you got to look at it. If you get CCNA, now the only companies that you can apply for are those that use Cisco products, right? You can't go work on somebody that's using Palo Alto or
Juniper.
Fortinets or Juniper or, pick another flavor, right? That's when we start talking about the vendor specific, that's when you really got to start figuring out what your true niche is. Because generally especially when you look at CCNA, right? In 3 years, you either have to take that same $600 test again, or you have to take the next one higher. And it's like AWS. AWS, they don't have continuing education. They don't have renewals. You have to take their cert again.
Yeah.
So you really got to start dissecting to figure out which has their true return on investment for what you're looking for.
And that also that whole everybody talks about SANS. You can get SANS. Well, SANS, you have to take the exam every 3 to 4 years. You have to retake it. There is no CE process for them right now. They're trying to develop it because they see ISC squared, they see ISACA, they see all those other organizations. You get a CISM, and you do 40 hours of training every year, and then I pay I think it's $125 a year fee, and then I upkeep that cert. The whole objective behind that is to make sure you stay with the current threats, the current solutions and stuff. That's what that's driving, right? But when you look at SANS, they're like, yeah, you just have to retake our exam every 4 years, and it's open book, and it's that's their business model. Now,
Careful how you say open book.
yeah, that's true. That's true. It's not totally open book.
So here's
I would say you've got the SANS book behind you. I know you do.
here's your open book.
Yep.
3, right? Each of these books are 750 pages each, and you have 2 hours to take a test. So you still have to know exactly what they're teaching you. There's a reason why it's $7,200 or up to $7,200 as well. You have an industry leader practitioner that's teaching that course. It's not somebody from ACI Learning or New Horizons that all they're required to do is read the new book and build a curriculum out of it. No, you got people that are actually doing this
Fluent.
stuff, right? If you go like do mobile forensics, you're going to be getting taught by somebody who has a minimum of 5 years of experience doing mobile forensics. So you're going to get the latest and greatest. When you look at something like the forensics certs and stuff like that you see in the wild, cool, they're good and all. They're teaching you how to do, use the forensics tools and stuff, but they don't talk about the aspect of you find some really gruesome stuff doing digital forensics. Murder cases, pedophilia. I mean, there's a lot that goes into digital forensics that people just don't think about. And it's the same thing with OSINT. I know Omar is on here, and he's a big proponent of the OSINT for good and doing trafficking person cases and stuff. And one of the places that he applied for was Innocent Lives Foundation. They have what they call the pit, and that's their sole job, is to hunt people that are committing acts against children. But they also don't teach you how you're going to present this in court. There's just a level of knowledge that you're not going to get from some of these, especially when you talk about a boot camp. But with SANS, I mean, the reason why originally they didn't have a continuing education portion is, let's be honest, it's a $7,000 cert, right? So I get this cert, it expires in 5 years. I should be looking for my next big thing. I should be working on my next, if I'm doing SANS, I should be doing my next SANS cert. So I shouldn't have to worry about continuing to have this piece of paper.
But they are in the talks right now of creating a CE program, and part of that is because they're losing members because ISC Squared and ISACA have a CE program now. And CompTIA has a CE program. All these places have come up with these CE programs, and so SANS is trying to come back into the fold to make theirs basically get membership, honestly. And their product is phenomenal. Nobody disputes that. Even if you talk to those organizations like ISC Squared and ISACA, their product is phenomenal. But then you go back to you gonna pay for it though.
You're going to play that expensive violin.
I think too, look, with what
That
Thomas is saying,
5-finger violin.
it's crazy if you're looking at, like, I know when I started getting into cybersecurity, I would see people on LinkedIn with all these certifications. And I don't understand now why you have 25 certifications, because what you're making me feel like is you don't know what the hell you want to do in cybersecurity, because shouldn't you be more focused on, you should be more directly focused on what it is within that path that you want to do and those specific certs for it, instead of having a whole wall. Like, I'm not knocking it, but why do you have a whole wall of certifications and you're not working?
I'll tell you, part of that is the job description, because when they put the job description in and they have 15 different, we'd like you to be AWS, Azure, cloud practitioner, CCNA. If you have all that, I'm not taking this beginner's level position. Let's start there.
Yes.
My other favorite thing is, we'd like you to have 7 years of cloud experience. Well, I'm sorry, cloud hasn't been around for 7 years, so you don't have, there's nobody that has that requirement. So people go to certification en masse because they can say, well, now I can fit into Splunk, AWS, all of these things, because every job description, they put the stuff they have and the stuff they might be getting. And you're trying to get a job. So what are you going to do? I'm going to try to certify all this stuff. And that's where that comes in, where those guys have 25, 30 certs. They're just, they're mass certain.
It's crazy. And it's
So-
like,
Josh,
I still don't
Josh
see
and
anybody,
Neil
like,
did a video together. I can't remember how long ago it was, but I know Josh might be able to talk about it more, but it's certain ninjas is what I call them.
So-
And
Yeah, yeah.
I will chime in. I am one of those people. I have over 85 certifications.
No, I'm talking
Um,
about breaking in though. Like these are entry level. Like you are not like you've not been in the game for years and years. Like you are day one, and you.
Yeah.
I just don't understand. Like
There's also a difference because you love it. There are people that get a lot of certs because
and
they
I
like it
get that too.
and they're
Yeah.
trying to branch out.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I have certs in pretty much everything you can think of in IT. It also comes with my roles that I've had. You know,
Mhm.
I have not narrowed myself down into one particular very finite area. I've done, help desk, I've done server, I've done router, I've done pen test, I've done GRC, I've run SOCs, I'm doing security director work, where having all that knowledge is important. However, to Alfred's point, when you interview with me, because I am a hiring manager, and I see something like CISP on your resume and that you have a master's degree with information assurance with a focus on health, and I ask you a question that is, what cybersecurity frameworks, regulations, and requirements are you familiar with, and how would they tie back to the role that you're applying for? And you get glass-eyed and give me I don't know, or you just sputter out the word NIST and can't really talk about it. Yeah, I chuck you to the side.
Okay.
If you're going to list a cert on your resume, I am absolutely going to ask you questions that should be covered by that.
Mhm.
Because the person I've described, 26% of your CISP is cybersecurity frameworks, regulations, and requirements. Over 50% of their master's degree was those three things. And they said they had a focus on health on their master's degree, so they should at least be able to spit out the word HIPAA or high tech
Mhm.
and be able to explain those things to me.
Yeah.
So those people that have those 25 certs that are entry level, they're wasting their time, they're wasting their money,
Mhm.
because it might get them past, the ATS system or the, technical recruiter who's just checking the boxes that you ticked off enough keywords. But as soon as you get to an actual hiring manager, you're getting chucked to the side because
Yeah.
all you did was take the test and brain dump.
If
Yeah,
I can
for-
piggyback off that, when it comes to certifications, when you see an entry level folk out there and you see truckloads of certifications, there are plenty of ways where these junior folks can get truckloads of certifications. All they got to do is pay a little money, and there's some test banks out there where they just memorize them, go in there and take some of these exams word for word. So, and like Joshua just mentioned, all that stuff will be filtered out during the interview process. So don't necessarily look too much into those folks with 25, 35 certs attached to their name when they've been in the field less than 2 years, because a majority of them have been, we'll just say, bought.
Yeah, and that's why I say, Josh, you're a little bit different. You've been in a while. I would expect to see somebody with you with 85 certs. Like that's an expectation,
A collection.
especially when you see the different areas that you've been through, right? But when I'm looking at a dude that graduated high school last week and he's got 25 certs and he's rolling into a job, I don't think
Yeah.
so. That's not how that works.
Actually, it might. I hired a guy 2 years ago that had 8 certs, had graduated with an associate's degree, and then graduated high school 2 weeks before I hired him.
Yeah,
Bar
that-
none, one of the best
You're
engineers that
probably
I ever
passionate
had.
about
So
trying to
so
get
he
into
did the whole college courses while in high school, correct?
He did college courses while in high school. He actually graduated college before he graduated high school.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You hired a unicorn. I'm telling you.
I did,
Yeah.
and he's
He did,
absolutely
yeah.
amazing.
But that's what I'm saying. Like I would just say, just don't try to compare yourself, because that's something that I did. Like, damn, am I supposed to have all that? No, I don't need all that. I definitely don't.
No, and honestly, Paul can testify this. I've done a metric ton of hiring. When I set baselines for certs for my jobs, it's the minimum cert that meets the requirement of my customer. No job have I ever advertised required more than Security Plus. If you have something like that higher than that, awesome. Security Plus is what I'm looking for, because that's what my customer requires to check the box. If you have more than that, I'm totally going to ask you questions on it. You know, I'm going to make sure that you know what you put on your resume, because that's in turn going to be a reflection upon me as your hiring manager and as your boss, that you actually know the stuff that I hired you to know.
Well, you said it too earlier, right? It's the ATS. There is nothing saying that you can't put studying for Security Plus on your resume to pass that ATS, right? Because studying, ATS ain't going to see that. They're going to see Security Plus, right?
Right.
And you're able to
I will
explain,
say,
here's what I learned while I'm doing my Security Plus studies.
now don't put that you're studying for 6 certifications, because that's going to get to me as a hiring manager and go, yeah, no, pass. And yes, I have seen that multiple times.
6 certifications.
Someone listed that they were actively studying for 6 different certifications, and they weren't even related certifications. Like, you could say, I'm studying for Net Plus and Security Plus, where
That's what I'm
there's like a
saying.
30% overlap between the two.
Yeah.
Nah.
That's exactly what I mean. Like, none of these certifications are in any way directed in one pathway. That's what's so insane.
Well, so you know I'm going to say it, Josh. You know I'm going to say it. Now for our knows I'm going to say it. It's a broken culture with boot camps, right? And you got to look at it as it's not old people like Josh and I. When we went to go apply to take something like Security Plus, they had requirements you had to get before you can get that cert. Set it on the website. Minimum 2 years in security before taking this cert. But again, we talked about technology changes, right? You can YouTube, you can stream, you can Udemy, you can do whatever, right? But it got to the point where a lot of these companies, they don't check your credentials to see if you already have some kind of knowledge in it. They don't care because they want your money. So you have to, if you're going to boot camp route, I'm not saying all boot camps are bad. You have to really do your homework. Get on and look at their reviews. Do some OSINT, some open source intelligence, and figure out what they're going to teach you, right? Because I posted 2-3 days ago about a veteran that just got took for $5,000. And it was marketed as a DevOps certification path. It was Security Plus, CND, and Splunk Core User. There's no dev anywhere inside any of those 3 certs. I mean, granted, yeah, Sec Plus will talk about the software development lifecycle, but it ain't talking about how to do any kind of development. And because that boot camp marketed that hot term, that's the flavor of the week, DevOps, DevSecOps. Come to find out, you look at the website and they're teaching you in 4 days. You break it even further, and it's not 4 days consecutive that they're training you. It's Tuesday, 2 hours, Thursday, 2 hours, next Tuesday, 2 hours, next Thursday, 2 hours. Here's your voucher, go take the test. Then you look at it further, it's all pre-recorded videos. Well, what is Udemy? Pre-recorded videos. Why did you just go spend $5,000 on something that was pre-recorded that you could went and spent
It's so frustrating.
far,
It's
far
so
cheaper?
frustrating. Especially when veterans come out and they try to reach to us and they're like, I would like to get help paying for these certs. And I'm like, what certs were you trying to get? And these certs that there's a lot of opportunity out for them to be able to get for free. And it's like, how much are you needing? $1,500? You know, it's why it's so important to really network and talk to people before jumping into stuff as well, because that's how people get got. And it's like, it's so sad, especially when you have, you know, younger or even older vets that are really tight on money and they're trying to do better. And they're like, $1,500 is a lot of money to someone that may not have that really available. And here I'm looking like a jerk because I can't honestly help, but I have all the certs that they were looking for. I could have gotten you information to get them for free. And and I hate when I see that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're on here, Chamiria, because Ted, the gentleman I said you need to reach out to, is on here. He was able to find a grant program in Texas
Yeah.
that is paying for his certification. I think, what are you doing, Ted? You're doing Network Plus and Security Plus, right? Q Crickets.
He's studying for those certs. Oh,
Yeah, the Texas one that he has, I'll get the information to you and we'll definitely share it for sure. But he's getting the skill port, right? So you know it's pre-recorded, you know it's gonna be PowerPoint to death, but it has labs, right? Boot camps, I can't tell you how many that I went through the military after 2009 when they started making all the ITs have Security Plus, that they just taught you to book. Top it off, while I was serving, I actually went to a course that was a boot camp that our command paid for. Our department head, or our basically COO, was in class with us. So the instructor the first day said, I am only required to teach you 4 hours of book each day. Well, what are we doing for the rest of the 4 hours? What was said earlier? Test preps.
Mm-hmm.
They issued us test preps and said, study this. This is what's on the test.
The magical packets of questions.
Like, oh man, what? So luckily my COO department head was with me during this class, and we got them canned from being able to teach in San Diego. That's why every time you see me post about boot camps, I'm always sour about them, because you do have good ones out there. Josh has one that sadly, it's really a trade school, but they market it as a boot camp. I think his daughter's going through it, but it is a trade school. You're getting hands-on with it. It's just that got to play those marketing gimmicks, right? What sells? Boot camp, because it's a word, it's a flavor, it's a buzzword. And then he mentioned about universities too. So both universities and boot camps, when they advertise on their website, earn a career $95,000 a year. The stats that they're pulling from that are from people that are already in the industry, not entry level. So there's a lot of
They're pulling me
misinterpretation.
with my salary because I have Security Plus,
Yeah.
and that is bad.
Yep. One of the things that me and Josh like to comment about on each other's posts too is when you're looking at these companies that you're applying for, that they require a cert, one, you need to reach out to at least 3 people that are in that role that you want to work in. Get it from the horse's mouth. Hey, I'm looking at this job description. It says XYZ cert. If you were looking at this job, what cert would actually be more beneficial for you, what you're doing right now? Then at the same time, get on their Twitter, get on their news feeds, get on their follow them on LinkedIn and figure out if they have DoD contracts. Because if it's DoD contract or FedRAMP, they have to abide by the 8570, and it is going to be an absolute requirement. What's the other favorite one that everybody likes to talk about? Unicorns. A unicorn job description. Understand that a unicorn job description, this is my take on it, so don't go quote, it's not gospel, but a unicorn job description you're going to find mostly on a .io or a .tech because they're a startup. So a startup, when you're talking about a startup in their first year, they have a 1 year forecasted model they have to meet. And that means all those things that's on that job description that they're going to pay you $130,000, $140,000, you're going to be doing it. You're going to earn that money. But you're going to get burnt out. And that's why they pay that much, because they know that you're not going to satisfy that 4-year contract or 4-year worth of salary. But generally about after their first year and they met that model, majority of it's going to be an MSP, right? So MSP, their natural progression is to become an MSSP. MSSP is when you start throwing in your threat intelligence, your incident response, where you actually send out a consultant for a company to talk to the insurance and talk to the on-site technicians. The ones that are doing your malware analysis, they have a forensics lab and stuff like that. That is what an MSP wants to aspire to be. So if you can find something like, so for Dell and Aaron, I was able to get them with a startup company, but they were so junior in their organization that they didn't have these unicorn job descriptions because they didn't want to start 100% as an MSSP right off the bat. They just knew they didn't have the money for it. CTI tools are expensive. Those are your cyber threat intelligence tools. So they just needed people that could do log analysis, look at an email header, find out what's wrong with that email, why it's malformed, looking at a malformed packet and understanding why, hey, this is a garbled URL. What does that mean? Oh, it's a botnet, right? But we'll, during the interview, explain how you know that garbled URL is a botnet. Looking at the back to the basics that Gary was talking about, right? So all of us that grew up in tech that understand that cyber isn't IT, granted, almost 80% of us old fogies still think that IT and cyber are the same. It's the back to the basic stuff like system monitoring, system event viewer. These are all low-hanging fruit items that are very, very attractive in a SOC environment. They're also very attractive when you talk about a red team operation. Why? Because how can I manipulate that event viewer? How can I manipulate that log? Right? And you're not going to learn that going out and get Pentest Plus. You're not going to go learn that by getting CEH. You're just not. The OSCP, the INE, the TCM that Owen was talking about earlier. That is actually, these are organizations that were created to teach offensive cyber legitimately, to talk about how, like, again, dating ourselves or dating myself, going back when Josh was still active duty and I was still active duty, when the cyber protection team stood up. We were taught when we did red team operations, you have to have a scribe with you. Your scribe is to take your notes while you're doing your hand jamming. That way you take those notes and you go backwards and clean your trace. You don't learn that in Pentest Plus. You don't learn that on Try Hack Me. You don't learn that on Hack the Box. You're learning how to break the stuff, but you're not learning how to be a real operator. So just, you got to look at those basics. And a lot of these basics you can get through community editions of academies. You know, Range Force, you know, Josh, I think mentioned it, or he mentioned it in at least link in chat. Range Force Community Edition. You're going to learn what elastic is. You're going to learn what a seam is, different types of seams, intrusion detection systems, process monitoring and process injection, Windows and system monitoring. And it's free. It's free, and that's ideally what you're going to be doing if you were to join a SOC. But
I had a
that's,
quick question for Josh, if he doesn't mind answering it for me.
yeah, I'm done talking.
I'm sorry, Paul. You know, I don't.
No, I'm being serious. Like
Oh,
I
okay,
mentioned
I don't
earlier
wanna
before we
like a-
started, I can talk.
I like that Josh stated that he hadn't really found his place yet. I'm not sure how many years you've been doing what you've been doing in total, but I feel like I'm supposed to have that defined role. Like I wanted to do this, but then I was like, no, that looks like I want to do that. Then like, oh no, let me do that. So I think I found where I want to be now, but how many times have you changed like directions in your career path, Joshua?
So I've been doing this for over 25 years, and about every 2 years or so, it seems like I get redirected somewhere for some reason or another into doing something that's related or slightly different. You know, when I came over to start working the SOC environment with AT&T, I had never worked in a SOC, not at all. And they were going to bring me in as a deputy SOC director. And the reason why they brought me in is they're like, you have this really deep bench of understanding and knowledge. We know that you can learn this, but we need all of that other stuff that you bring to the table. And that's kind of been the niche that I've found my career is. I go to places that need help, that need fixed, that need kind of professionalized, and I hop from one thing to another, and I learn all kinds of new things and creative things. And I have found that you don't really need to, you know, say I'm going to be a router switch guy and spend your entire time in router switching. You know, one of the big things now is with cloud, routing and switching is now all done virtually and now done by people who used to be what we would call sysads, you know, the people who were managing, you know, boxes. So with the way IT and cybersecurity evolves, you know, siloing yourself might be more harmful than, you know, going from one place to another. You know, I've seen folks that they've done, you know, sysad stuff, come over into cybersecurity, jump over to GRC, and each of those areas give them a different perspective and a better understanding of the bigger picture overall. And each role makes them just a better professional. So when they do go back to doing something that's, you know, a sysad role, you know, they understand all the security that's around it, and they're a better sysad for that, you know, vice versa. If you start off as sysad, you're a better security engineer because you understand all the bits and bytes that make what they're doing work. So my opinion is, you know, you don't necessarily have to stay in a silo, and you can absolutely kind of swap specialties, but you need to focus on one thing at a time.
Okay.
You know, if you want to do, you know, blue team SOC stuff, do blue team SOC stuff, learn that. You know, if something else piques your interest, once you've learned the blue team SOC stuff, then go learn that other thing, or change jobs and learn that there. You know, don't try to learn 10 things all at one time, because then you're not learning anything.
No, definitely. Yeah.
You know, one of the things that something that's I didn't interview with Josh, right? But back when I was approached by a recruiter, AT&T has some SOC positions. I knew Josh worked there. I reached out to him. I mean, obviously he looked at me and said it. He told me straight up that he couldn't tell me anything else, obviously. about the position being out. He was going to be the hiring manager, but he's like, look at the job description, and if it matches what you're at, cool. But also look at it as you've been doing this for 20 years already. Well, what do I look at as a hiring manager if you're trying to apply for a junior position like that? If you've already been into it for 20 years, am I just going to go over there to work to be complacent just because I need a 9-to-5 paycheck? Am I going to be productive? Am I going to be asking those hard questions? Like one of the greatest questions that I was coached by Ollie Stiles, one of our advisory board members, was one of the first questions when the interviewer asks you, "You have any questions for us? Does your culture does the company culture promote job rotations?"
Yes, that's a good one.
That lets them know that, hey, yeah, I want to do this job, but I want to grow with you. Am I going to be able to grow with you? But looking at like we were talking with Tom earlier, right? Is don't look at just those entry level positions or junior level positions, because you have so much other skills that the hiring manager might look at and say, you know what this email is going to be? Sorry, you're overqualified.
And I'll be real frank, I won't hire somebody that's vastly overqualified for a position, because ultimately that's a time sink for me, because I'm going to hire you in, I'm going to get you spun up, and you're going to be bored, and you're just going to be with me for a very short period of time, and then you're going to go and find something that you're really qualified for, that you're really interested in. And I did the math for my group. For us to hire somebody, that whole process start to finish is about 30K. So that's 30K that I'm going to spend between personnel cost, actually getting you spun up. We actually do legitimate training with you. You get a solid 2 weeks where all you do is get fire hosed by my tier 3 engineers that teach you everything we need you to know. That cost us time and money. So if you're somebody who is clearly someone that's, should be a tier 3 and you're applying for a tier 2 role, I'm going to give you the feedback that you're just overqualified for the role. You wouldn't be a good fit because you're not going to be able to grow with me. You're going to be here, you're going to be unhappy, and that's going to be bad for you, and it's going to be bad for me.
And something else too that is you see 50-50 across the board on LinkedIn about people and thank you letters. A well-crafted thank you letter goes a long way. It's a dead art. I was told by several companies that do a lot of career coaching that an email, cool, that's an email. That means that it can get lost in junk mail, or look at Josh. Josh probably gets 90 emails every hour. It might have got lost in translation, but that attachment,
Josh.
yeah, Josh keeps busy.
Yeah.
But a letter, thank you letter and stuff like that, or a well-crafted Word document, that's a second interview. Don't throw it away. Hey, I know I struggled on XYZ, and it was partly because I was lost in my head. This is what I meant to say. Or in a position that you are overqualified, maybe you're like me. I have a disabled wife, permanently disabled. I have a handicapped son. I'm disabled. I need a remote job that I can be able to go to my appointments, because I'm pushing 5 to 7 appointments a week. I can articulate that in a thank you letter. I know I come off overqualified, but here's the reason why I'm looking at this position. It's more easily, it's a lot more easy for me to container this type of environment with the life stressors that I have going on. Now you can play with that letter against their human emotion.
I will say that a thank you letter has never gotten anybody a job with me. But what it has done is the people who have written me thank you letters that interviewed well, but just maybe were not one of the top candidates, because you usually have multiple roles open. I'm interviewing multiple people. You might not be the best person that go around, but I've had folks that when they wrote a thank you letter, I'll go back out to them and say, I have a role open. I want you to apply. And that's a huge difference, because you put time and effort to, talk to me, thank me for my time. If you did well, I'm going to reach back out to you and say, no, I do want you on my team. This might be the right time for you to come.
Do you think it's too much, looking at it as a networking where, hey, I know that I may not have received the job now, but is there a way for us to connect and, so that I'm always available or in your community where if you need me, I'm here for.
Oh, sis, I'm Vader choking you right now, right? What's the one thing I always say? You better connect to that interviewer before you interview with them.
Well, yeah. I'm really big on that. It's I don't think a lot of people.
They don't.
How big networking is. I love people, so I don't ever think about networking as network. I just made some new friends, but in the time that it just like with my push into cyber, I did go to school. I did a 4-month school. I networked with a lot of people. I made a connection that she got me into a position that I'm in now because of that, our network, like, Jessica, Paul, me and Jessica are still really great friends. And if I were to leave the company, I would make sure that if there was another spot that she would be perfect for, she'd be the first one. And I'm looking to get another position through yet another network connection that I've just developed a relationship with. So I think a lot of people try to sleep on how valuable just connecting with people and staying connected with those people really truly is.
So I will kind of interject with some stats here. 70% of all jobs that are available on the market right now are not advertised in any way whatsoever. The only way to get that job is through networking. Every job I have had, both while I was in the military that was a selective position, and since I left the military, has been through networking. I have never once applied for an open job posting, ever. Almost all the folks that I hire have come in through networking. They've been a referral from somebody that knows our group, knows my team, and that's just the facts. That's a well-published study. 70% of all jobs are based off of networking. If you are not networking, you have cut your aperture down to 30% of the whole, and that is just massive.
Yeah, one of the things that I tell my candidates for Whole Cyber Human Initiative is you should be making your connections weekly, and they need to be meaningful. Meaningful meaning it needs to be a personal invite with a personal note. But when I tell my candidates when they think they're ready, now that they have some hands-on knowledge and they can speak really to an interview, I say okay, this first week, I want you to look up 10 companies you want to work for. Find 10 companies that you want to work for, look at their culture, look at their news. Do they have a merger coming up? Do they have an acquisition coming up? You can even look at the stock market and see if they have financial issues. Financial issues might mean they might not have a budget that's going to be able to hire you. They're just not going to advertise it because they already pay for that job description to be posted. When you look at those 10 companies, understand what role you want. Look for 3 people that are in those roles. Hit them up. Sir, ma'am, I'm currently seeking, position in XYZ. I noticed that you were working in XYZ. I was wondering if I could get 15 to 20 minutes on your schedule to chat, whether phone or Zoom. Boom. The goal is obviously you want 30 connections that week. But out of 10 companies, you may find one company you don't get a single connection out of. That should be something that says, hey, are they so overworked that they can't have a social media presence? But you also got to look at that connection and look at their activity when the last time they posted was too. Then look at, out of those connections that you make, you're not going to go blindly say, hey, I found this job description, I want to pick your brain about it. No, don't ever do that. That's going to turn it away. The idea is you want to gain that internal referral. More than 50 to 60% of companies nowadays give their employees internal referral bonuses if somebody gets hired off of their code. So build that rapport with them throughout that entire week. Some of the times that you talk to these people, maybe they give you some homework. Because maybe, hey, I want to be a threat intelligence analyst, and here's what I've done so far. Cool. Have you looked at XYZ? I haven't. Write that down. Come back to them. You know what? I just got done with that training. It was awesome. I would love to schedule some time with you again and chew the fat. Maybe that rapport builds to, you know what? We have some positions open. I'd love to, link you up with the hiring manager myself, or give you an internal referral if I had that power. Now, when you talk about the smaller companies or the smaller departments, because sometimes IT ops is siloed away from cybersecurity, even though they're doing security analyst stuff, it might be such a tight-knit group that they may only have 2 or 3 people. That means directors are still human beings. The CIOs are still human beings. The CTOs are still human beings, and the CISOs are human beings. And a CISO, you should have, I want to say a minimum 10% of your connections on your professional LinkedIn network should be CISOs if you're pursuing cyber. Why? Because they know what direction that company is going. They know what's going to be hot coming down because they have to do trends analysis. And, they're human beings and they like to talk to people too. But
Hey, Paul, let me drop something in real quick. I learned this from my wife, who has a degree in finance. Any company that's either one, publicly traded, or deals with over $1 million has something called a 10K report that they have to turn that into the federal government every year. Now, well, that's finance. What does that mean for you? Okay. I will tell you that in their 10K report, it tells you where they're spending their money. Okay. That's important. You need to know where they're spending their money. If they're spending their money into I want, then that's a good thing to know. About maybe they're starting up a healthcare division. I will tell you right now, that's one thing I found out about a company, GDIT. GDIT actually is starting up a large healthcare sector. They're going into the HIPAA sector. But how do you find that out? You find that out by their 10K report. Yes, it's long. They are long reports, but they give you so much financial data on where they're spending their money. And if they're spending their money into areas that you like, that you're into, that's probably where you want to get in with. If you're looking at that those, as Paul said, the top 10 companies, those are the areas you want to look at. Those are the kind of things you want to pull, because as you start looking and seeing where they're spending their money, one, you'll probably have a better job of getting there because they're opening up their employment workforce into those areas. The second thing is that they're going to have the latest and greatest because they're pouring in for it now. They're not, they're actually putting money into those areas. So, when Paul talks about doing your research, it's not just of IT stuff. This is what makes ITs better, right? This is what makes us stronger as individuals. We don't look at just IT things to get into a job. We look at the whole picture, right? I should be able to go to the CFO and discuss financial things in the IT world that applies to them. I should be able to go to operations and know exactly what SOC does and how it benefits them. You know, and like I said, you know, even cyber companies are getting into certain things like HIPAA. You gotta know, though, that 10K report is invaluable. You might say, hey, you know, these are top 10 companies I'm looking at, and come to find out, none of them's doing GRC. Well, if that's what your niche is, if that's what you want to do, why would I bother fighting for that company to get in there in GRC if they're not spending money in GRC, if they're not doing that, the type of work you want to get into? The other thing it'll tell you is how much their employment's going up and down. It'll tell you how many people are getting hired and fired based on their employee intake. It tells you a lot of stuff. And I would have never thought of looking at a 10K report to get that kind of information. So that's my little bit on that part that you were talking about there, Paul. I'm rolling out. I'll talk to you, Paul, later, and Josh, I'll talk to you later as well. Thanks.
Something else too that that could be some low hanging fruit while you're looking at places, especially if you're looking at like SOC or an MSSP, if you want to go threat intelligence or something. What does when you're looking at a company that is in tech and it says powered by, what does that mean to you? To me, that means that they have some VC backing, some venture capitalist backing. Take Cizen, for example. Cizen is actually the company that's already hired 2 of our candidates, and they want 5 more. They're powered by Friedman. Well, what is Friedman? They're a financial CPA company. I wonder what kind of security analysis work I'm going to be working on. It might be dealing with pay. I've already narrowed down roughly what they're going to be talking about. So now I know I got to get spun up on point of sales transactions. Maybe I need to get spun up and go to chapter 5 in the CISSP book and look at SOX Boxley and SOC 1, SOC 2, stuff like that. But now that you know that they're powered by Friedman, and Friedman is backing this entire company, and you know that they need money to sustain that MSP. So you look at Friedman, you find out in the news, they're merging with another CPA company. Merging with another CPA company means they're going to have a lot more roles come up. Maybe I take a pause from applying for a bunch of places and focus on something that I know is going to happen here in the very near future. I know they're dealing with finance. I can watch some YouTube, some Udemy on some cybersecurity dealing with point of sales transactions, what have you, Shopify, you know, whatever. But those are also little things that you can look at.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, Paul, but so I just had a quick question when it comes to networking and everything. So I know Josh mentioned really making those connections with the hiring managers and everything, but as we're making those relationships and everything else, how high would you recommend going up to? Like, would you recommend working with the peers I will be working with if I were to get that job I'm looking at, or would you recommend going up to lead or supervisor or even director?
You got to look at the size of the company. If you can look at the size of the company, the good thing about LinkedIn is if I look at ARC, I can go down to people. I look at ARC company on LinkedIn, I go to people, and it's going to break down and say who's in technology, who's in sales, who's in HR. And then those are the people that you want to start LinkedIn stalking. to figure out if any of those are in those roles that you want to do. You might find a company that is so small that maybe they don't have an analyst right now. Maybe they don't have a cloud solutions architect right now. And a lot of these companies are your small to mid-sized businesses that they're just trying to stay afloat because now they're getting hit by all these regulations. Another thing that is very powerful is look at your state ISAL. The ISAL is your information sharing organizations. And each state has one. A lot of the companies that have supply chain now have to, by regulations, be a part of a membership with an ISAL. And you can look at it's isao.org, and you can filter it through your state. But then if it's that case where it's that such a small company, then yeah, you absolutely talk to a hiring manager. The hiring manager might not even know exactly what they need if they are that small. Yeah, they may want somebody, they say they want a freaking cybersecurity analyst, and next thing you know, you show up to keyboard and you're a security analyst doing patch management, vulnerability management, stuff like that. Because not all hiring managers are technical either. Matter of fact, between 60 to 80% of the mid to senior level roles aren't hands-on technical. You just have to be able to speak fluently to what your team can do.
I can add on what I did, Daniel, because I'm not afraid to talk to people. And I was stalking a company that I wanted to work for. And it sounds crazy, but I knew where they were. I knew who the CEO was. And I'm pretty active on my LinkedIn. And the owner, the gentleman that was the CEO of the location here in Houston, was very active on his LinkedIn. So what I did was I'll just put a little thumbs up on one of the posts. And I started to continue to do that until it was almost natural, where it was like, he would just reply back. And then I connected to him, and, you know, I would say, oh, I love the way the company, because I would look at the videos on how the company was doing during COVID. And I made remarks like, oh, I think that's great. So sometimes it's just the way you literally slide into that network with them, because I'm still friends. Like, he's just right here. He does all the baseball things, but I'm not really big on sports, but I feel like I could state to him now, you know, hey, I was looking at, I see that you're adding or you're building in. I feel like you should just take the risk and not be afraid of how high you go, because this company, I mean, granted, it's probably like small to mid-size, but it will grow. It's going to get bigger. And having him already know, okay, she's here. I see how she's active on LinkedIn. They're going to see you. I mean, I know that I'm going to make sure they see me, because that's just how I am. I want to be networking. I want to have a brand out there. So it literally does also depend on what you're doing on your LinkedIn, how active you are, what you're putting out there, because people are looking at you. I wanted to add a lot of times we're looking at how we're trying to change how people are getting recruited, and what you're doing, what are you sharing with your network? Are you being a benefit to any of the communities out there? That's one of the things that I look at. Like, I want to be a recruiter. And when I become a recruiter, those are the things that I'm going to look at, because I'm going to stalk you. I'm going to figure out, what is he doing? Is he active? Because if I'm looking at someone and their LinkedIn isn't very active, that's it. Like, what's the point? Because I feel like you're not going to be active with me. You're going to be, maybe you'll reply to me in 2 weeks. So take that risk and connect. Just slowly, if they're like, oh, I had a great time at the baseball game, and you're in that city, like, oh, I didn't even know the Astros were playing. How did we do? Most of the time, they should give you a positive reaction and just go for it. I mean, go for it, or what's gonna, if they're gonna either say, oh, hey, what's going on, or they're just gonna ignore you. You're still gonna be you're gonna be in a boat where it's either you just made that connection now, or it was just nothing in the beginning. So I say take the risk and go for it, no matter how far up you go.
Yeah, there's no level of networking that you're limited to. I know some of my candidates that have connected with the CEOs of companies. But one of the best techniques I could say outside of doing that personal connection request is, if they do accept it, is, hey, thank you for connecting with me. You know, I would love to pick your brain on some things that I have going on my head as a job seeker, or to say, hey, you know, how did you get where you're at right now? You know, do you mentor anybody?
Okay, that makes sense because I'm kind of new with LinkedIn overall because I've been working like, well, I was doing, you know, Marine Corps Reserve for 6 years. I was an engineer for them. I did security. And then when I started moving into labor relations, that's when I really started to look at it like, hey, you know what, I should probably make one. Because I did a couple of, you know, I did a couple of workshops within college, but you don't think about it in the moment because I was more thinking about, oh my gosh, I need to pass calculus, you know. But definitely now looking into it, it's like, oh, this is actually the bread and butter, especially for this field that I'm brand new to. That's kind of like the bread and butter where you actually find jobs and everything. So
Well,
I'm still
think of like Josh said, right?
Yeah.
You were doing reserves, so every 3 years you might get cycled to a new reserve unit. So what does that mean? I need to see the reserve center that I'm attached to, what organizations or what other reserve units are assigned to it.
Yeah.
Make those connections, because you never know, you might end up working with them. They might tell you right off the bat, you know how the military is. Don't come here. You know, but it's one of those things, you know, it's, you can gauge a lot about the culture, right? And this is one of those things where you see a lot of people that go back and forth on, people don't leave the company, they leave toxic managers. Well, then you have the other side that says people don't leave companies, they leave bad culture.
Yeah.
Well, bad culture is still toxic. So it's still the same. It's just, you know, when you think about, and this is why soul searching the roles that you want to do is so pivotal. And that's why, you know, for like you, I would send you to the Systemize framework. It was shared in chat, and I'll drop it again here soon. But dissecting all 52 roles and identifying of these roles, what matches you as a person.
Yeah.
Because in cyber and InfoSec, you want to do something that you're going to like, because if you end up getting a role that you didn't freaking really do research on and you hate life, it's going to put a bad taste in your mouth, just like that command that you just got to that you wish you would have known about before you put in orders.
Yeah.
It's the same concept for that as a veteran to think about. So don't just connect with just entry level personnel that are working places. The sky's the limit. I mean, unless you want to go SpaceX.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Okay, cool. No, I was just wondering if that's a thing that, you know, what people mainly do, or if it's kind of off limits, but it makes sense, you know, they just decline, that's it. Because I'm learning more and more LinkedIn's kind of more like Facebook than anything else. You know,
There's
just
Ken Underhill did a master class on effective LinkedIn usage. And I'm pretty sure if you reached out to him, he'll more than likely give you a voucher that covers that Udemy course. Because again, it was like it was said, right? When we talk about like Chamaria said about if you're helping the community, that means I want to hire you because you're going to effectively help my people because you have all this stuff that you're posting that maybe my people don't know about. Because I know one of our candidates that got hired was a law enforcement agent, and he went completely LinkedIn silent for freaking 3 months because it's like Josh said, onboarding in cyber, it's intense. And a lot of times, some of the ones that are contract to hire, those are the types of ones where if you don't meet certain wickets of that onboarding, bye, Felicia. And same thing with looking at a contract, right? Because come from the military, you might want to go be a DoD contractor or go work on somewhere that has DoD contracts. Those are very volatile. One of my directors, Alex Rhodes, was working for a DoD contractor, and out of the blue, another DoD vendor contractor bought that contract out. What does that mean? I do not want to keep your employees. I want to bring my own employees in. Bye, Felicia.
So for most security, for most of the entry-level cybersecurity jobs, do they do like a pretty intensive onboarding process when you first get in? Because a lot of like the discussions I have were like getting your foot in the door, but they never say like the first like 3 months you're working for a company, what you should really expect to be doing. I know it has a lot to do with
case by case. Definitely case by case.
Okay.
I know the onboarding process that that Josh had when he was at AT&T and the one he's at now, it's pretty intense. You're gonna get a lot of hands-on, a lot of hands-on fluency with it. But if you don't already have the back to the basics and kind of the foundational grasp of it, it might be to deep water, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The sizing company, they didn't have an onboarding at all when my first candidate got hired with them. Well, because he didn't graduate our program, but he went through more than 85% of it. He understood all the different things that they were going to be doing. You know, he already had analysts that he was working with. He became their onboarding specialist. So, I mean, it's in a perfect world, each company would have a standardized onboarding, but it goes back to a lot of the companies that don't want to have to train people. They want someone that gets there and hits the ground running. Uh-oh. I guess Josh has some fires to go put out.
I wanted to also add, Daniel, is or anyone, when you are trying to make those connections, make sure that you're intentional about it, because I love making connections, but if I get some random messages, and this was one that I got. The gentleman wanted to connect. I'm not going to connect with you if you tell me that he said, I need a lot of work. And that's all he wrote was, I need a lot of work. Well, dude, trust me, I need a lot of work too, but like on what? What do you need work on? You need work, or do you need like some personal stuff? Like, do we need a council session? I don't know what you're talking about. So be intentional, like write a note. Hey, I saw you on this podcast, or I saw that you wrote an article, or I just saw that you are at this company, I'm interested in it. Write something so I know, one, where in my network I know I can connect you to. Just don't be like, hey, hi, nope, I'm not, sorry, brother, I'm not gonna do that. Have some intent, like, make a statement that makes sense. Don't just be like, I need some work. Me too, me too. Okay,
That definitely makes sense. And for whenever you do those connections, you always put a note in, right? Just to be like, hey, I saw that you work for this
Yes.
company or whatever,
yes.
the case
Un-
is.
or unless like we're like in this situation, there we are having here and I just dropped my LinkedIn. If
Yeah.
I'm in this, you connect to me and I see you're here, I'm gonna automatically connect you because obviously we're already interacting. But if I don't know you from Sam and you write, like, I don't know this person that wrote me, I need some work. Okay,
Mhm.
say, I don't know what to tell you. But if we're in like a meeting or something and I drop my LinkedIn, I'm going to look at your name and see if you're in that group of people. I'll connect with you right away. But if I don't know you and there's no connection, then yes, hey, I saw you on a podcast, or I saw you on a YouTube thing, or somebody was talking to you, or you made this post and I agree with you. I just thought maybe I'll do that every time, every time.
Okay. I know that's what I did for you, Paul, when I first saw your LinkedIn. Because whatchamacallit, A Perv hit me up last week when he did the Diana initiative. I was actually supposed to be there anyway. I just had like a family thing. He just gives me this connection. He's like, this is someone that you really need to talk to. I'm not gonna lie. Hit him up ASAP. That's it. Paul Cummings. He's veteran as well. He's going to know. He does a lot of good mentorship stuff and everything. So I was like, okay, cool. So I feel like I did that with the note, but I'm not gonna lie, like that was probably one of the first times I actually did that on LinkedIn. So
Yeah,
I feel
I know, especially if you talk like Augie, right? So AT up there. I know some of the things that we both personally dislike is when you look at my profile and it says I'm a cybersecurity research engineer. But yes, I'm a CEO of a nonprofit. And I get a connection request. I need a job now. Well, ignoring that contact.
Exactly.
Didn't even read my profile. What about me says I hire people? It's Aper was that was a fun conversation. Chamiri will tell you my mind's completely wired, all kinds of jacked up. I can look at just the military alone. I can look at any MOS, AFC code, or Navy rate, or whatever, and I can identify how it translates into something. It's just, but I mean, in the military, we cross rate. If I don't like my job and I've only been doing it for 2 years, I can go to my career counselor and say, hey, I want to go do a different rate or MOS. I just have to pass the score or do whatever I want, get a letter of recommendation, stuff like that. And so I've had a lot of people that over 20 years changed rates, and I was able to train them like that, right? When you talk about, so you're Marine, did you ever go down range?
no, not yet.
No? Okay. Okay, so on your drill week, did you ever do any ASW orders?
ASW?
The active orders for like months on end?
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I only
ADSW, yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say, no, there's a million and one acronyms. But yeah, I did active orders to help out for Toys for Tots for a couple of months there in Brooklyn.
Still doesn't help, but let's say this. So if you're active duty, chances are you would have had Sentry Watch at some point.
Yeah.
All right. Here's how I would break it down to you. If you're a military cop, if you're monitoring a building, or if you've done Sentry Watch, you are the firewall. All right, you are the firewall for that base. Sailor, Marine, soldier, Joe comes in, airman comes in, they show their ID. You just did stateful packet filtering on them, and they pass, they go through. Each building on base is a segment of that network that you protect. Each building Now, obviously, when you look at like places that have higher security required, above top secret clearances and stuff, they have their badges. That's your role base access to get into that building.
Yeah.
So that's one way that you have to translate your skills that you've learned basically into it, right? If I
Makes
was to look at somebody that was a Navy musician, the first thing I'm going to tell them is, have you looked at anything with codes? Have you done anything with programming? Why? Why would I suggest that? Well, a musician looks at sheet music all day. They can look at a sheet music and tell you if a note is wrong on that piece of paper. If I'm looking at somebody that I need to do AppSec with, or do some kind of white box text testing against code, a musician that is already trained to look at anomalies, more adapt to find anomalies. Even going down to military barber. Military barber, they got to do trends analysis because they got to be up in the up of what the military says a faddish haircut is and what's not a faddish haircut. Obviously, for you, it's going to be the high and tight no matter what. Well, unless you're on Navy base, then you have options.
Hey, Paul.
Fake crop top fades.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah. What's up, Steven?
How you doing today?
Not bad. I'm loving the progress on the worksheet too, brother.
I really appreciate you giving us a shout out. That really meant that it meant something. It meant that we were on the right track and we were recognized. I really appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. It's what we want to do, right? Is if you're active in the program, we're gonna advertise you.
Right. Look, what I wanted to say was I didn't figure my MOS was I was in a band. All right. I said, it's no way you're gonna be able to transfer my skills over, but you just did it. That's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, you got that, and then going back to what Albert said earlier, right? With mass communication specialists, you understand signal interference. I mean, let's be honest. When you're doing your research on a microphone, maybe you are the electric guitar or electric bass guitarist, and now you're up on the microphone. You hit the wrong note because it's too close. It's going to cause that nice. Yeah, nobody likes to hear that. So, brother, there's so many different soft skills that everybody has. It's pathetic. Bosun's mates, I look at them and say compliance all day. Your aviation mechanics, your pilots, compliance again. Why? Because they do spot checks daily. So quality assurance specialists. Learn some code, learn some, something, and say, I'm going to go do some quality assurance testing on something. Then with the band, you're a project manager. Well, I'm not going to say project manager, you're a project officer, right? Because request comes in, you have to say, okay, well, what's the venue? I got to go look at the venue so I can measure out the acoustics. How many seats? What kind of equipment do I need to bring in? Are there any special guests coming in, right? You're doing all this open source intelligence gathering to understand who the audience is going to be before you go play.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
So,
yeah, it definitely puts that into perspective a lot.
But it's the same thing with, civilians too, though. You got, if you look at somebody that is a barber on the outside or a stylist on the outside, they do trends analysis. They do compliance. They do compliance because, hey, after X amount of cuts, I'm required to spray this thing off. or I need to drop that comb in that freaking nice Barbasol liquid. I had to keep up with what the latest and greatest ridiculous haircuts are. And what are barbers good at? Talk. Social engineering.
Yeah. Talking, advertising, do all that good stuff, word of mouth, networking.
Yep. Your financial analysts. Financial analysts are used to seeing dashboards. They're used to seeing spreadsheets. They would be more accustomed in a SOC environment because it's something they already know. It'd be easier for them because they're used to doing those types of Boolean logic type searches in the CRM tools they're already using. So I originally tried to write I'll have to revisit it. I started an Excel sheet just for military skills transfer into cyber, but I stopped because, what was it? Oh, I got employed, so I didn't have time because I had to go through my onboarding. But
They do it, yeah.
it's Alex is another one that can help you translate your skills too. He takes it as a law enforcement aspect, right? You look at nurses that want to get into cyber. Now, I also want to point out, right? So we already talked about he left. Oh, what was it? Was it Sadili? Can't remember his name. I'll have to look back in the chat. Being in the media industry, if you're already in industry and you're shifting into a new career, you know that industry because you've been working in it. Who provides security for that industry that you've already worked for?
Yeah.
Right. If I'm talking about somebody in the medical field, who's doing security for the medical equipment? Who provides security services for this hospital? Talk about freaking hell, Crack Donald's. Hey, who's doing security on this kiosk? And the reason why I can't talk to a human to order my food anymore. Or I guess there's no other way around. You're the employee, so you're handing out the food after someone goes to that kiosk. Well, who's doing security on that kiosk? Hey, you have any security positions? What kind of requirements are there?
Okay. That definitely makes sense, especially with for me, I've been doing I was doing security, like physical security for Meta for a bunch of years. I was contracted to Meta. We didn't work directly for them. We did a lot of physical security. So I think that was pretty cool where, I'll just have one of my officers, I was a site supervisor, just have one of my officers guard the server room. Because for them, all the IDF rooms, no one can go in without a security officer present at all. That's it. We have to check
Tell you
in.
what, the person that you will want to talk to about some physical security and how it translates into general InfoSec, is that gentleman Augie right up there. He can. That's somebody you want to connect with when you talk about how to convert that knowledge into it.
Augie?
Yep, Augie Tinsdale. I always say his name wrong. That's why we just call him ATT.
You are actually getting better with it though.
I am. But yeah, it's there's all these little hidden paths that you just got to be able to articulate. This is why, for me personally, I always bump heads with the concept Michael Quinn has about take all your military stuff off your resume. No. Instead, translate your military experience into the role you want to do, and then find out what you need to take off. If I'm Omar, and I'm trying to get into SOC analyst. Why am I going to talk about missing persons and this, that, and the other if the SOC is not doing that? But I can mention that I know these OSINT tools that may help me in the SOC. So I just wordsmith it.
Okay, that definitely makes sense. Especially for OSINT, how do you feel about that company? Because I signed up to be a judge for their upcoming
Oh, Trace Labs?
competition. Yeah. So
I love
April-
Trace Labs. Trace Labs, the last one that, so I roped one of our candidates into it with me to be a judge. And he's Israeli Defense Force before, many moons ago. And I told him, I was like, during this event, right, think of how you would want your intelligence delivered to you if you were going into a foreign country, right? But you got to understand that that type of OSINT is going to be missing person, sex trafficking type deal is what you're going to deal with Trace Labs. OSINT is another one that has a spider web of 1,000 different roles that's involved with it. I think one of the organizations that Omar can teach you about, in Tampa at least, has NSA approved academy. But yeah, I love the Trace Labs because one of the cases that we were freaking doing during the CTF last July, we actually found somebody that was missing within 72 hours.
Wow.
Because a lot of the reason why Trace Labs does that is because a lot of police districts around the world, they don't have cyber divisions. When they get it, they get a tipper saying that my daughter's missing or my son's missing or this, that, and the other. So they take it, they put it through, they create the BOLO, and then what Trace Labs does is they reach out to these places, these different law enforcement agencies that have active cases. And that's your job during that CTF, is to find as much additional information that could be used to help them find somebody. For instance, one of the things that led to this person being found was somebody noticed that in this picture, there was a CCTV that was adjacent to the building. There was nothing in the report, because you get snippets of the police report that said there was anything with a camera around. So they managed to be able to track that footage that was saved in the cloud. And because it was within 72 hours, they still had access to that feed. And they were able to get a foreign license plate because it was in a foreign country. And they were able to find the person.
That's really awesome, because it's my first time judging. A perv made me sign up for it. He's like, "Hey, you're gonna love it. Just wait for it. That's it."
The best thing, Omar had already mentioned it. He's been a judge 4 times. Definitely connect with them. He can tell you kind of how they do a grading system and what to expect. Because I can tell you right now, I was there for my 4 hours, and because there are so many teams and so many judges, I didn't get anything to pop on my screen until the last 45 minutes. So I was just sitting there eating snacks. But if that's something that you're interested in too, again, Omar's got a really deep connection with a lot of the OSINT community that does missing persons, trafficking persons, sex trafficking, child abuse, spousal abuse, elder abuse. But just understand that even during trace labs, it can get very gruesome.
Yeah.
You just got to go into it with the mindset. You can't be a vigilante because I think one of the organizations that I actually just talked Omar up about again was Innocent Lives Foundation. They have what they call the pit is what they call it. And they have mandatory pauses. You know, after X amount of time on keyboard, you have to take 15-20 minute sanity break.
And that's getting into more the forensic security side of things,
It's
right?
not forensics.
Oh.
This is literally just using obviously a VPN.
Yeah.
I would say a VPN and a Tor browser at the same time, just for a little bit more anonymity. But you're using tools to find as much information as you can, and some of it might lead to very graphic stuff. Especially when you talk about the Innocent Lives Foundation. Omar could talk about that one better, but I know one of the things they're talking about was, you know, what are you going to do? What's your composure going to be like if you're going through an OSINT case and you find out that a 5-year-old is being sexually abused by an uncle, a parent, a brother, what have you?
Yeah.
Right. Because that's how, this is why OSINT is so intense. But this is just one of the many sides of the spider web. But they tell you right off the bat. They even tell you during freaking trace labs, you can't take it personal. You are there to try to gather as much information as you can. Decompress after. And it takes some serious skills to be able to containerize some of the stuff that you might see.
Yeah.
Then you got the digital forensic side. Digital forensics is one of those ones where it can be broken down into subsets too. Like you got your mobile forensics, you got your dead box forensics, you got your media forensics, your network forensics. You know, it's more often than none, a lot of the digital forensics or forensics analysts, they're usually conducting HR cases. HR cases are, you know, you have an employee. Remember this, right? We talk about freaking your security clearance. This person just hit the lottery and blah 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 blah. What kind of flag is it? You know, or John is talking about, you know, marital issues and went and bought a boat, or out of the blue came in with some money or something like that. Right. These are the types of things that you would be doing with those types of things, or maybe even corporate espionage, because the insider threat still remains one of the most intricate parts of security is human behavior. So you're looking at it like that. But when you start talking about your network forensics and your dead box forensics, those are the ones that would actually lead towards, you know, understanding what your capabilities and limitations are, like your right and lefts. For instance, if John works for AT&T and they suspect that he is selling secrets or trade secrets and this, that, and the other, you've been called in to do, you know, digital forensics on them. Okay, cool. Well, first thing you want to ask for, do you have a BYOB policy? Is that BYOB policy, or yeah, BYOD, not BYOB. I'm thinking of beer right now though. That bring your own device policy might say that if they're using that your personal asset on their network, that something happens, that device belongs to them now for forensics. But then looking at, okay, this is on the corporate network, and maybe you find out this person has been selling trade secrets on their Yahoo account. What legal bounds do you have to look through their Yahoo? You don't. You have to reach out to law enforcement, and it's going to be warrant based, and you're not going to be doing it. There'd be a co-op. So, but just like anywhere, no matter what, you're always going to have some employee that's going to have some kind of porn on the network. And it may end up being pedo porn. Maybe what was hot freaking 12 years ago? Faces of Death. Right? People watching people getting freaking killed and their heads cut off and stuff like that. Again, this is the type of stuff that might pop up when you're doing digital forensics, or even one of these OSINT for good type situations. The trace labs, I will say, that training that they provide, you need to do it. That training is top notch. There's a company that I'm gonna be talking to that they generally charge about $3,000 for their OSINT training. And the same type of fundamental training that you're going to get from that for $3,000, you can get from Trace Labs for free, just by signing up to be a judge.
Yeah, just one of those price hacks.
Yep. Yep. It's but it really boils down to figuring out where you want to be at.
Yeah.
I keep talking about that systemized framework, and this is what it is. It's, where did it go? Oh, there it is. The heck? Oh, there it is. Okay. So the systemized framework, is it sharing or not?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. When you look at it, it's broken down into 7 categories or 7 domains. In these 7 domains, there's 33 specialty areas, and then there's 52 work roles. Again, this is a .gov, so they follow the 8570 stuff. So sadly, they're going to start mentioning XYZ certifications. It is what it is, right? But the one I like to really use as an example is I come down here and I say cyber defense analysis. This is generally going to be either your security analyst, or down here like vulnerability assessment management, or it's going to be your SOC analyst. So I click on it. Boom, cyber defense analyst. Again, we know that it's going to be a SOC analyst. Let's see, a cyber defense analyst uses data collected from a variety of cyber defense tools, example, IDS, intrusion detection system, alerts, firewalls, network traffic logs, to analyze events that occur within their environment for the purpose of mitigating threats. Then it says, here's the abilities that you need to be able to do within that role. Here's the knowledge base that they expect you to understand. Here's the type of skills, whether they're soft skills or hard skills, that would be required for that type of role. This is an example of the potential tasks you might be tasked with. And the bread and butter that I like to use is the capability indicators. Is there an entry-level position available for this type of role? Yes. Intermediate? Yes. Advanced? Yes. Again, omit the fact that it says certifications. because you don't want to look at that. You want to look at what it's saying. So a knowledge base that's addressing new attack vectors, emphasis on cloud computing technology, mobile platforms, and tablet computers, new vulnerabilities, existing threats, operating systems. Come down here, education. It's not essential, but may be beneficial, right? Not essential, but may be beneficial. This is for entry level. And here's the type of degrees that they would suggest. Experiential learning. Experiential learning is going to be looking at something like Rangeforce or Udemy, something that you can get some kind of fundamental or foundational footprint knowledge on. So introductory information assurance, networks and networking, sensor operation, when we talk about intrusion detection systems, network and data analysis, packet capture analysis, hunt methodologies, and intelligence analysis. The types of training they suggest would be system administrator type training, basic cyber analyst and operator training, intermediate cyber hunt methodologies, and cyber threat modeling. Cool. So now I have a blueprint that tells me exactly what an entry level should understand, right? So now I go over here and I say, packet capture analysis. YouTube. Packet capture analysis. Introduction to packet analysis. Now you have a way to start building your knowledge base by utilizing this right here.
Yeah.
Then you come over here and say the same thing. Hunt methodologies. Insider threat hunting. Threat hunting tutorial introduction. I mean, maybe you want to watch a hunt for a bird fighting a damn wolf. I don't know. But this is how I articulate it when I'm talking to somebody in our pipeline, is to look at it like this. And then if you're in the UK, you'd be using the UK Cybersecurity Council. Where is it? I'm gonna have to find the other one. Not that. I'll have to find it. It's it breaks down for the UK side of the house or for the Europe side of the house. The same concept as systemized framework, but they're more defined on what theirs is. For example, you know, you might like this because I'm going to talk old IT. It really wasn't. It's really not called cybersecurity. It's called cyberspace security. And if you were going traditional IT and learning how to be a cyber security professional, that's what it would end up being, right? Because you see some posts, is it cybersecurity, 2 words, or is it 1 word? Well, it's really 2 words merged together. Like if you were to do cyberspace security on Google, you'll find a lot more interesting stuff than you would just doing cybersecurity or cyberspace security. But again, this breaks it down to where you know what an intermediate role, like your junior to mid or your senior. So like here you go, level 1 analyst, level 2 analyst, level 3 analyst. Or maybe this is a level 1, this is a level 2 and 3, and this is your SOC lead. But it's an amazing tool that I like to use with it. You can do it for multiple different things, like the incident response. A lot of people hate to hear it, but a SOC analyst is an incident responder. And ideally, that would be one of the things that I would say should be your entry point before you become a full-fledged cyber defense incident responder. That way you've monitored traffic, you've worked hand in hand with the threat analyst or a hunt team. Or maybe even a malware analysis team. But this is where it really starts breaking more stuff down. Because if you notice, now here is just extra information from the last one, that because everything up here is the same exact freaking thing that was on the entry level position on the other one. So, but you know, it's one of those things. What else? What else has people got? Who's heard of Docker? I know Marta's heard of Docker, so I'm not going to pick on her.
It's a jeans company, right?
Not Dockers. So Docker right now, if you want to, you can build a cloud on a budget with Docker. But Docker, you know, when we talk about VMs, yeah, exactly, Matt, Kubernetes, containers. It's really a good way to free up a lot of space and automate if you want to go set up a home lab to practice with. You should not be paying for a home lab. VirtualBox is free. 99% of the VMs for Linux or Windows are free. Hell, even VMware has a free version, but it only allows you to pull one VM at a time. Docker, though, you can really geek out with, and Augie he's the person that I tell people to go to when they ask me about Docker, because he's turned that hobby into something fun.
Well, I play with it, right? So I'm not an expert at it. I tinker with it, but it has some interesting things because we use it in the enterprise environment, but it has some implications. Actually, if you got a few minutes I can do a show and tell real quick, maybe.
Yep, let me boom. You can share.
Because what's the old adage, never work with kids, dogs, or do a live demo? Let's see if this
What was that?
works. Said the old adage, never work with kids, dogs, or try to do a live demo.
Yeah.
Right? So Docker is pretty easy, and I'm actually running this on an old, I've got a Windows machine. I prefer to run this on my Ubuntu Linux machine. It's a lot better. But I've got a bunch of images and I've been playing with them for, quite a while actually, right? So, and images are the roots that set up containers, right? So a couple of interesting ones that we can look at, I've got Kali running on one, I've got exploitable, and then these are started. So let me start these. right? Get that one started, right? And you can see how fast they start, right? So this is a Linux image running Kali right now, and it took just a handful of seconds to start. If I do, bring a command shell up, right? Right, got two, right, so now, and let me try and do this. See, I was showing somebody this earlier, so I'm hoping that it works, but we'll see. Yes, no, maybe. There you go. What did I do here? Let me do the other one. All right, so you can see that this is now in that container. And that's the this is my target host. It's running Metasploitable, so it's vulnerable, right? But it's just a Linux host, right? I can't spell today, can I? Ooh, look at this. I've got a Kali now, right? Now, if I were to go over here, do ifconfig, right? I've got this virtual address. I'm going to use this here in a second. So let me take this down. Pretty simple process, right? Let's go a little further. What is that? What is that? What is that? I think you got to do the console, right? Because there's some things in here like this one right here. Pretty vulnerable, right? Now I've got an older computer, so it is running a little slow.
And don't worry, if you're GUI like me, you can, he's got his set up as a headless. You can set it up where it's got a monitor so you can have your GUI and all that
You
fun
can,
stuff.
I prefer to run it this way because the install that I have is kind of the minimalistic. It's set to run under the CLI, right? But, you know, if I were to, while that's loading, if I were to do, right, let's say this, right? Look at all the tools that are out there that are bug bounty hunters, right? These are all the tools you can load that have full pen test, or all the images you can load that have the full pen test tools installed. Now, some are, right? So this one says minimal Docker container. This has full pen test tools. You go to Docker Hub and read more about it. Some of these are contaminated. So, right? But within this environment, you know, I ran an Nmap scam against one container against another. That's a pretty basic, you know, red team type of thing, right? It's loading Metasploit right now, but that's another basic tool, right? This is a very simple lab, and you can do it as a red team. You can do it as a blue team, right? What do I have to turn off if I go into this image to make it not vulnerable, right? and then rerun the tests. Ooh, look at that. Right? I'm gonna take this one. Oh, and I have to tell it where to go, right? Go back here. I'll have to fix this, but I still can't type. But you get the idea, right? So I can go and run a full lab just inside a containerized environment. I can compromise using the standard Kali tools, right? And cost me nothing. Pretty simple, pretty basic. And this is how you learn, right? So if I were following a YouTube, how to run Metasploit, I would use this to be able to get hands-on learning with the commands in a very safe environment so that I won't screw up my machine. I don't make my own PC, vulnerable and exploitable, right? And these are simply containers, right? Get out of the tool, get out of the container, it's shut down, back to my right? Those are all my containers, but I have none running. Right? And if I want to throw them away and start over, I just build a new image, right? I go back here, where'd it go? And I start a new image, right? Docker run. I tell it what image name, I tell it what host name I want to give it, and it starts a new container. Looks like the other one, totally separate. I can install different packages if I want. If I screw one up, throw it away, start over, pretty damn easy. So those are some of the things you could do with an environment like that.
And it's low cost, low yield, or low cost, high yield, I mean. Especially when we
Well,
talked
it
about
sets you
earlier
up
how
to
Linux
be
is really
able to learn the skills and do the hands-on without having, your full control. You don't have to, it doesn't cost you anything to do, right? You have to learn a little bit about it, right? It's one of those, it's one of those handful of things that, I think everybody needs to have, regardless of what role you have. And some of it was talked about earlier. You should learn a little bit about cloud, right? I posted a link earlier that Microsoft does cloud training all the time, some of which come with cert vouchers, right? Know a little bit about Linux. Every one of those containers was a Linux kernel, right? You can actually run Linux natively on Windows now. You can go to Microsoft's Play Store and download Ubuntu and load it on your machine natively, right? There's some things you got to do, like turn on WSL2 and a couple other things, but you can do it. Run Ubuntu on Linux, on Windows, right? Learn Python, right? So a couple of people talked about earlier about CCNA and some things like that. You know that about 15% of the test is now on automation. Ansible, Chef, Puppet, all through Python scripting, right? Software-defined everything is coming from that perspective. If you don't know Python, a little bit about Python, you're not going to survive, right? Virtualization of Docker is another piece, right? If you understand this, there's a lot you can do. Think about, you know, as we talk more and more, the industry wants to shift security left, right, towards the development, right? How do you do that? Speak in their terms. Applications are going to Docker. Can you run security tools inside Docker? Absolutely. Do you know how to? Do they know how to? I'm sure they don't. But if you can, you got a leg up. Just some thoughts.
Abhijit had a good one on there about how he runs it to speed it up too. They nice little quick script. And I did find for the UK side, I did find the that UK version, right? So over in Europe, you can actually use this if you're in Europe. So crap. Where'd he go? He's not here anymore. But like in Germany, if I want to figure out cybersecurity roles and how they're defined over there, this would be a good place to go. You know, security testing. Boom. It highlights penetration testing on it. Talk about secure operations. And a great thing about theirs is it doesn't really say, you know, you have 100% need for certifications for the stuff, but they break theirs down into carrots to where you can understand what the role does. The type of experience that you might need coming in, that they would look at to get hired. Notice it says financial management, because again, you're used to looking at dashboards all day doing finances. You have a hidden skill. But I think that we're dying off here with participants, so we'll go ahead and kill it for tonight. I'm glad everybody came out. I hope everybody got something from this. We're looking at hosting these once a month, and it's most likely going to be the last Friday of each month. And we're going to continue to have different guest speakers come in to be, you know, for you to ask those questions. Joey Chapman wasn't able to make it today. She got the Rona, but she's definitely wants to be at the next one. And, you know, hit us up on LinkedIn. If there's a certain type of role between the board and the board of advisors, we can find somebody that would want to come in and talk to you if you have questions on a specific role. The reason why Josh came is because someone asked about GRC, and just so happens he's done GRC and SOC. So it's kind of a win-win. Anybody have anything as we close out?
I'm fine, but thank you for this event. This was really great and learned a lot today.
It's definitely a fire hose, and I'm glad that we got our so the Fathom note taker was one of those waitlist things, and one of the things that helped us get it without paying was the nonprofit stuff. So when I'm going to end up, after this is done, I'm going to cut it over to my DaVinci Resolve, crop it a little bit, and then upload it to YouTube. And with the Fathom notes, we have a transcript, so you'll be able to freaking go through it and read, you know, some of the stuff that was talked about. If maybe somebody was talking too fast, like me. Um, but looking forward to it. And I'm glad that you stayed with us for as long as you did, Gregor, because I know it's getting pretty, I guess not late anymore, right?
Nah, it's early. It's early.
I was getting early. But for the 10 people that stuck around for this long haul, I had mentioned earlier that there's something big coming out. We are going to be launching a fundraiser that is going to be to cover 50 certifications, and it's going to be a competitive scholarship. I looked around, nobody's doing scholarships for certification voucher costs. So it's going to be one of our big pushes to help get Whole Cyber higher on the food chain and getting noticed. It's only going to be up to $400. So if you want to go chase that overpriced piece of paper CEH, you're going to have to cover the rest of it because it's only going to be 400. But we're going to be launching 30 of the certification vouchers going to be done through scholarship. The remaining 20 vouchers are going to be based on our community cyber challenge. So stand by for some live streams that come up soon where, I'm going to present the actual slide deck that talks about it. And then also look at our website, because the website's going to have, I'm going to be 100% transparent with the grading requirements for the scholarship right off the bat. So hopefully that piques your interest, and I'm glad everybody stuck around. And I will talk to you all soon.
Alrighty. Talk to you later, Spider. Have a great one. Bye-bye.